We're going to be talking about the Great Reset, which, by the way, is not a conspiracy theory. Rather, it is a book by Klaus Schwab that I'm reading. And we'll be asking the question today, do we have a horse in this race? Is Donald Trump and the Republican Party really trying to combat all of this infrastructure that they're building to create an Orwellian big government? Or are they just putting on a show with one hand while the other hand solidifies deals for big players like Bill Gates? And we're going to start the podcast off with the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, Mr. Mayorkas, lying straight into the camera and saying that the woman he chose for the disinformation unit is neutral. I know he's lying. He knows he's lying. Everybody knows he's lying. But they're going to police disinformation by starting with a lie and telling everybody that the person chosen is neutral.
Republicans are criticizing your decision, the administration's decision to choose Nina Jankowicz to lead this disinformation board. They say she is not somebody who is neutral. Your response?
Eminently qualified, a renowned expert in the field of disinformation. Absolutely so.
The live show starts now. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to a live episode of Dream Rare Podcast. I want to talk about, I got the book right here because they try to censor it sometimes. I've been censored off TikTok as some sort of conspiracy theory, but there is a whole book and ideology I'm going to read from in a second from COVID-19, The Great Reset. But I want to talk about first that DHS clip. That's the Department of Homeland Security Secretary. And he is claiming on television that the person he picked, Ms. Jankowicz, I'm sure you've seen the clips of her speaking, singing, etc. He's trying to say that she's neutral, Obviously, that's a lie. She's far left, hyper partisan. Everybody knows that. There's people on the right that I like personally that I wouldn't say, oh my God, they're fair, they're honest, they're absolutely, completely unbiased. Like, that's just not true. And that's why I think, the further they go into dishonesty, the more they want to censor, the more they want to control speech. And this is my message without being too boring or going too stale into it. But basically, I know this, the DHS secretary knows this. She is not unbiased. She is not neutral by any means. Everybody knows this. So the fact that they have the hubris to just keep lying and start an entire disinformation board off of disinformation and off of somebody who has shared disinformation while the DHS secretary pushes disinformation, saying that she's neutral, just be honest. Be like, she's left-wing on almost everything. She's like exactly like the media. However, she'll try to do it. Don't just be like, oh yeah, totally neutral. I mean, just complete joke, but it is what it is. There's a lot of people check out the videos of her and, they've been going viral. I want to talk about today real quick, something that's interesting on a macro level. I think there's Democrats, Republicans, there's all sorts of stuff going on around the world. But one thing that has really taken the forefront, people have been talking about the Great Reset. I have the book here because I've actually just held this book up on TikTok. And I just simply said, I was like, hey, this is a book called COVID-19, The Great Reset by Klaus Schwab. And I basically was like, just read it if you want to know what he thinks about the Great Reset. And TikTok took it down and they're like, fact check, misinformation. Literally all I said was like, this is a book, read the book. And that's what a nightmare Orwellian, society we live in. That's why a lot of us, they always straw man like the craziest conspiracy theory. But a lot of us that are just normal, rational people that think with our brains, we don't want these disinformation units. We don't want to turn into communist China, Europe, etc. Because we've seen what big tech does. They have absolutely no humility. On Facebook, every time they've censored me, they never explain it. They're always wrong. There's no one to talk to. They just don't give a crap. So, when they try to say that this is a theory, I always just hold up this book, one, because I own it, also to just try to protect myself. It's almost like a cross to like a witch, you just hold it up and I'm like, this is not a random theory. There's an actual book and I can prove the point that I can prove reading the book and showing you clips, which I'm going to do. But before that, the macro thing that we're talking about today is, do we really have a horse in this race against the Great Reset, or is the Republican Party knowingly or unknowingly completely setting us up for failure until we, the voters, the taxpayers, the base that votes for these people, step up, stand up, and really tell them how we feel? So to make the point real quick, I've highlighted, maybe you guys could see it. I'll hold it up to the screen real quick. I've highlighted in the book right there. This is written by either Klaus Schwab or his penman, I don't know, Thierry Mallard, I guess he's got the brains behind this book. But I'm going to read this quote directly from this book and just tell you exactly why I don't have to agree with it. Because left-wingers, they like to be sneaky and say, oh, fact check this, that, this, that. Let's read it. Okay, so this is straight from the book. It says, COVID-19 is likely to sound the death knell of neoliberalism, a corpus of ideas and policies that can loosely be defined as favoring competition over solidarity, creative destruction over government intervention, and economic growth over social welfare. So this is Klaus Schwab or his handler writing, COVID-19, this miraculous, spontaneous, totally random, and not at all orchestrated virus, is just going to sound the death knell. It's going to destroy this government that we've had for hundreds of years. And he calls it neoliberalism, what I consider neoliberalism, and he considers neoliberalism, two different things. But he says a corpus of ideas. He's saying COVID-19 is going to sound the death knell of this. Ideas that favor competition over solidarity. So he makes it very clear he thinks solidarity is better than competition. That is the complete opposite of what I believe. I think that is the downfall of the left wing. They don't understand competition. They don't understand the tough truth. They just want the lie. Nothing exists. This can be this. Up is down. Down is up. 1 + 1 is fine. Don't hurt my feelings. And it's like, I'm a nice person, but at the end of the day, as nice and compassionate as I am, I'm also very competitive. And if I wasn't competitive, I wouldn't be where I'm at. I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be healthy. You need to have some sort of tough reality. So when he tells me in this book that he sees this virus destroying the government system that favors competition over solidarity, that tells me that this guy doesn't get it, or he does, and he's just trying to control society. Because you could look in left-wing cities, you could look in sports, anything. A lot of society is being ruined based on this idea that people don't understand that it's not always good to be in complete unison. It's good to be creative. It's good to be different sometimes. It's good to compete. You're not exactly equal to everybody. You deserve equal freedom and equal justice. But if you're 7 foot tall and he's 4 foot tall, you're not equal. You're not equal in height. You're not equal in weight. We're not all exactly the same. Men are not women. Women are not men. And that's okay. That's actually a great thing. That's what makes humanity amazing. The mom gives birth. The dad does this. It's like now none of this exists because we all have to be exactly the same. This is what I want people to understand. We deserve equality of justice. We deserve equality of God-given rights. Everybody deserves the right to be themselves and be treated with respect as a human being. But this idea of equality and equity, it's really just fake because people are not exactly the same. And it's actually a good thing. You don't want to be exactly the same. If you come from here and you come from here, it's okay to hang out, eat each other's food, drink, live in the same neighborhood. But at the same time, you don't want to let these people erase your entire heritage and culture because it's beautiful to have all of this stuff. You don't want to just replace it with this big glob of nothingness. And that's what they're trying to do. So in the book, he points out that he wants, solidarity over competition. And if you didn't know what that meant, he goes with the next line. He says, creative destruction over government intervention. So he's like, we're destroying the system, or COVID's destroying the system that defines competition over solidarity, creative destruction over government intervention. That's the most bananas one to me because he tries to pin creativity as creative destruction and say that government intervention's better. Like, oh, government intervention's better than creative destruction. And it's like, this guy, Klaus Schwab, believes literally the opposite of our founding fathers. Our founding fathers, in many ways, they're not perfect, but they had a lot of libertarian values. They probably read Greek philosophy. I don't know. A lot of it were biblical principles too, but they were like, we need this moral society where people have, the right to own guns, the right to get government out of their face. That's literally America. And these people are like, yeah, no, COVID-19 is going to ruin all that. It's literally in the book. So, the point that I want to get before I start explaining what I'm talking about with the Great Reset is I've just made my point without a conspiracy theory, without some sort of idea that they would consider kooky, with the book of the guy writing it. And I could say fundamentally, not only do I disagree with pretty much everything he thinks about how to run society, it's proving to fail in many parts of our society already. But, I don't have to like this guy. I don't have to trust him. I don't have to believe him. And his ideas are not only the opposite of mine, but the opposite of the country I live in, which we believe is one of the greatest countries ever created because we've had protection against the government. And you want to get rid of that and act like it's just some sort of conspiracy theory. So that's why I disagree with the Great Reset on many reasons. But make a long story short, they've used COVID, and it's the whole book is like about that. Literally, the whole book's like, oh, here's this virus. Now let's do communism. Like that's the gist of the book. Oh, this virus. Oh my God, climate change virus. Let's do communism. Let's get rid of American freedom. Libertarianism's bad. We need government intervention. Creativity's bad. We need solidarity. We're all exactly the same. Like that's the whole book, and it makes you really wonder. How random this all is. Like, what a convenient virus. Like, oh, virus here, communism. And it's like, oh, but you can't talk about it. It's like, let's talk about it. But, that aside, just seeing everything he's putting in the book, you're like, wow, these people really want to overturn our human freedom and basic sovereignty in America. So how are they doing it? Well, during COVID, there's trillions of dollars being printed. There's new infrastructure. The entire world changed. I say there's been two reality shifts in the last 10 years. First, it was Trump world. When Donald Trump won, it wasn't like he just won presidency, which he did. Reality shifted. It was like either you're a psychotic media crybaby, like psychopath, or you're a Trump supporter. And I'm not saying that's all you could be, but like reality shattered when Donald Trump won. And some people have never been the same. I would say the country's never been the same. And he was like, if the sun was, you get what I'm saying? It's like everything was revolving around Trump. The media, what do you think? What do you think? Who are you voting for? And they successfully shattered that Trump reality. Whether you agree with Trump or not, he just kind of dominated like the entire media market. They replaced it with this COVID world, right? It's like now once COVID came around, Trump world was gone and it's COVID world. Masking, vaccines, lockdowns. I mean, people have used vaccines for the last, 100 years, but the whole world didn't revolve around vaccines. It's like, it's huge. I mean, they give it to kids and, I'm not saying there hasn't been vaccine, but like now no one was talking about vaccines 5 years ago. Very few people like, yeah, do you want to get it? This and that. Not like you need to be locked in this is this new reality that they gave to us. You need to be locked in your house. We're going to take away your gym. We're going to close down your protests. We're going to start ramping up censorship of speech. We are going to act as if it's a brilliant idea to lock elderly people in their house. And we're not going to allow you to disagree with this. Somebody that understands, I guess, some sort of science and physics, when you have an elderly person, I mean, I'm 32 at this point. I'm in pretty good shape, so I feel great. But in general, as I get older, it's like if you drink, it's harder to wake up the next morning. I have a lot of people that watch me that are 80, 70, 60, 50. I got every age group, but everybody knows, like, as you age, it doesn't mean you're going to be in worse shape. You can get in better shape, but that's just kind of how the body works over time, where, when I'm 30, it's easier to get back in shape, but when I'm 80, things wear down quicker and it's harder to get back in shape. So the conversation that they never had in the media, which has really irked me, which really became my main thing, and I've said it so many times not to be repetitive, but since nobody's saying it on Fox News, CNN, no politicians are talking about it, it's like, vaccine. It's like there's no conversation about what I'm about to say. It's wildly unhealthy, not just to lock down younger people and close down gyms, but it's actually, this is something I've never heard even Republicans say, because they're like, oh, it's such a good, maybe we can set the kids free and then lock the elderly. It's like the elderly are prisoners now because there's a virus and that everyone just agrees on it now. Your bones, your muscles, when they took away their exercise, when they took away their family, when they took away their access to just walk around their building and community, they, I believe, killed way more elderly people than they ever saved, outside of the whole, New York, New Jersey mess where, Cuomo put COVID-19 patients in nursing homes, which obviously killed people. But I'm talking about, this is something I've never heard anybody say, which is crazy. It's like, wearing down the muscle, wearing down the bones. How many elderly people did they kill just by taking away their basic human rights to walk around and see their family? I mean, this is actual science. This is actual physics. There are studies done in where elderly people in Europe, where they live longer than anywhere else in the world, one of the things that made them live longer was community. And when you take that away, you're killing them slowly. I'm not saying they just die overnight, but it's like, this is just absolutely insanity. So the Great Reset comes in. You can call it what you want, but this was this new reality shattered. It went from Trump world, I love Trump, I hate Trump, I defend Trump, I'm indifferent to Trump, he's all over the television, to COVID world, masks, lockdowns. This is a good idea, and if you disagree, you're a conspiracy theorist, where The weird part is, if you really critically think, if I were to say in 2018, if I were to run in and say, hey, they're going to lock the country down in 2020, people would say, you're a conspiracy theorist. And if I said they were going to force a mask over your face, they would say, that's a conspiracy theory. That's stupid. I would never do that. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But then they literally do it, and they don't even realize they shift people's mindsets to where now the conspiracy theory is breathing air. Now the conspiracy theory is going out. So they get people to say, that will never happen. I would never agree with that. That's a conspiracy theory. To no, the real conspiracy theory is having Thanksgiving dinner with your family and going outside. And it's like how quickly they can just brainwash people through big tech and mass media, celebrity culture, etc. Many of which celebrities are actually getting paid to tell you to stay at home while they're not staying at home, but that's a whole different topic. So this reality comes in, this whole COVID-19 reality where everybody's thinking it all the time, all the media, and even myself, somebody who I think does a pretty good job of tuning out of this stuff. We have to be self-aware, I believe, and be honest and say it even controls our life. Because, if I wake up in the morning and everybody's talking about something on Twitter, you just join the conversation. And even if you're joining the conversation from an honest perspective, you're still joining the conversation. I could talk about pyramids today. I could talk about birds, seagulls, ants. I could talk about lights. I could talk about Nikola Tesla. But constantly, because of what's being on in politics, etc., it influences my decision of what I want to talk about as well. So I think in order to really shift into a new reality and figure out how to combat this stuff, we have to be honest. No matter what truth teller you are, it does affect us. When COVID-19 comes around, they suck you into this vortex of, well, I need to have an opinion about this. And when it comes to COVID, how could you not when you're locked inside your house? It's not like we made a mistake or anything. We have to talk about it, but that's how they control us. It's not just by, legislation, etc. It's not even just by brainwashing people on CNN. It's like when everybody does something in unison and they get these big corporations to just play along with it, it even affects you to the point where you almost have to talk about it because they control enough of the real estate. So just something interesting about that. But to make a long story short, this new reality comes in, all this stuff starts happening. And now we have to ask ourselves, do we have a horse in this race, right? And I know people are not going to take this well. I know it's been one of the things that people are like allergic to hearing. It's like if you talk to a left winger and you say, hey, Donald Trump did a few good things, they just like, have like a sporadic attack. They're like, oh my gosh, Donald Trump, he never did anything bad. Oh, I mean, good. Oh my gosh, Orange Man bad. It's like these people have literally lost their ability to think critically. It's like, can you admit that maybe he did 90 things you don't like and 10 things you know 100% bad? It's like that's what it's like talking to a left winger. On that flip side, I'm not saying it's as bad on the right wing because there's a lot of people paying attention, a lot of people able to handle other opinions, etc. But there are also a lot of people who really don't want to think critically about what happened in 2020 and how they implemented the Great Reset, how it was both parties involved. And moving forward, I have a few questions. If people are interested in being honest, we're going to ask them. But in general, in 2020, it's not just the media, that they use to bring in the Great Reset and the COVID-19 reality bubble. It's also legislation and infrastructure. And this is the huge problem with the Republican Party. I think libertarians understand this. I think honest conservatives understand this. I would hope everybody at this point understands this because it's blatantly obvious. But no matter which Republican gets into office, whether it's Reagan, Bush, Trump, whoever, they always kind of say, well, I'm going to cut the deficit. Well, I'm going to cut spending. And they never do it. And even before COVID-19, I don't want people to lose their, minds over this concept. But every year there's something called, before the COVID money printing bonanza, there's something called an omnibus bill. And Trump, one year, I would say, put up the biggest fight that I've ever seen. He ended up caving and signing it because I guess at a certain point, it's just the way Washington works and it just sucks. But in general, there's like these $1 trillion budget things that they sign. And no matter if it's Barack Obama or Donald Trump, there's going to be a slight difference in what's in it, maybe based on how Congress is leveraged, if you have more Republicans than Democrats. But at the end of the day, it's just this crazy spending bill where government just grows. And no one can stop it. And even if you think Donald Trump is totally innocent and he's totally on your side, you have to cope with the reality that he's not a secret Nikola Tesla space wizard, traveling back through time to, Nasara Gassara overthrow the money system. He's a human being who couldn't stop government from growing out of control. In fact, you could argue that it grew even bigger during his term due to, 2020. But in general, it's like that's just kind of the problem in government. So in order to really stop things like the Great Reset, and this infrastructure coming in that's going to change your reality, you have to identify where it's coming. And obviously there's been things in the past, but in 2020, the CARES Act, I've talked about it quite often, so I don't want to bore people, but Trump signed off on a multi-trillion-dollar CARES Act package that gave some money to you, some money to big corporations, and also established this new groundwork of how the hospital system was going to run. Now if you have a COVID patient, you get this money. Now if someone dies, you get this money. So, if you really want to look at how this is all happening, you have to be honest about how it came. And it didn't come in 2021. It came in 2020, excuse me. So the point that I'm getting is, if people can stick with me, so now you have this infrastructure that was ushered in and is way more difficult to get rid of than it is to get here. Trillions of dollars. Now there's this mass testing scheme everywhere where everyone just overnight decided and left wingers and right wingers. There's very few Republicans who spoke out against this. It took them like over a year. That mass testing everybody all the time is just like this good idea. It's like, well, there's this virus, and no matter how we'll open, but we're going to test. And the whole time I was thinking to myself, it doesn't even make sense. I'm going to give people a math equation right now, and hopefully this doesn't trigger the censors or offend people, but I'm not saying the flu is the common cold. I'm not saying COVID's the common cold, because I don't think they're the same thing. However, do this math equation with me. Okay, let's pretend that we had a common cold test the same way we had a COVID test, and we put those tests all over the country like we did the COVID test. If you look up on the CDC website, it says that the average person gets the common cold 2 to 3 times per year. That's how common the common cold is. The average adult gets it 2 to 3 times per year. So if you do the math and we had a common cold test everywhere, how many people would die from the common cold every year if we counted the common cold like we count COVID? Dr. Birx, the health official from Illinois, everybody admitted in America, we took a quote unquote liberal approach to counting it. And if you got COVID and died within a certain period of time, they said you died from COVID-19, even if you died from a clear alternate cause. This is nearly quoting the health director from Illinois. So even if you died from something else, 5 comorbidities, it's clearly something else. COVID had little to nothing. They're still counting you down as a COVID death. So if you had the same amount of testing with the common cold and the same threshold, if you die with the common cold, you died from the common cold, how many deaths do you think there would be in America per year? Given that I believe there are like 2 to 3 million people die every year in America, in my calculation, it would be impossible to keep it under a couple 100,000. Like that's on the low end, because common cold is so common. You die. Now you died with the common cold, they say. I'm not saying COVID's the common cold, but this is what I'm talking about. If you really want to fight the Great Reset, you're not going to do it like Republicans. It's like we sign every bill, we do all this stuff, we act like mass testing is cool, we sell vaccinations for 2 years, and then we complain about mandate. It's like, what about just using basic common sense? I've never heard a Republican say that lockdowns are not only unhealthy for everybody, but they're also unhealthy for elderly people. It's like they just threw it. And this is disgusting to me. I'm not even old, but I like old people. And also eventually I'll be old too, if I'm so lucky to get that old. So, it's like if I turn 70 in this country, all of a sudden I'm a slave. It's like, well, we're going to let all the younger adults free. But even the Republicans were gatekeeping. They're like, we need to let everybody go to work and just shelter in place the elderly people. It's like, it's not healthy to shelter in place if you're elderly. That's terrible for you. That's terrible for me. I mean, I'm 30. I'll get depressed and unhealthy if I stay inside my house for 3 days. I mean, I don't do that ever. I always go out for a walk. I always go out for exercise. The fact that they did that, Republicans and Democrats killed elderly people because they just created this new concept out of thin air that it's just amazingly healthy for immunocompromised and elderly people to stay inside. That's not fighting the Great Reset. They're playing into it with one hand and they're acting like they're fighting it with another hand. Same thing with the mass testing scheme, right? The real story is if you tested almost anything else this ferociously, especially something that's extremely common like the common cold, you would absolutely have hundreds of thousands of common cold deaths. But the thing with the common cold is you don't get tested for it. I've been diagnosed with the flu multiple times in my life. I've never been tested for the flu. So how did they even diagnose me? These are questions nobody's asking. So besides the fact of the CARES Act, besides the mass testing scheme, the mass vaccination speed, Operation Warp Speed, these are all things that are building the infrastructure of the Great Reset. It's like every omnibus bill every year. How are you going to lower government when every year when Republicans are in power, they sign trillions of dollars, they pass things that help gun control legislation, they do stuff for abortions. I mean, they sit on stage and act like they're fighting for pro-life and they're fighting for the Second Amendment. Meanwhile, when you track the legislation that was passed during the Trump era, multiple things infringed on the Second Amendment, and also provided legislation to then have the CDC study gun reform, which is obviously going to work against you. These are things that they're doing, but nobody wants to talk about it. And I have a question, a few of them for Trump. I think the best interview that Donald Trump's done recently, because Donald Trump unfortunately gets usually one of two things. Either he gets a left-wing journalist who's a complete psychopath, or he goes on a debate stage and it's like a biased host who just, screams COVID and dying, and, you don't hear anything. So this is where Trump has kind of got trapped, and it's mostly not his fault, but you have left-wing journalists who are unhinged, who literally just ask the dumbest questions, the most biased questions, and make them look amazing because they're so dumb. But then you have mostly right-wing people who just kiss his feet and lick his feet. It's like, I haven't heard Donald Trump do a real interview ever. It's either a left-wing lunatic just saying stupid stuff and Trump looks amazing, or it's somebody licking his boots. I would say the closest he's ever been to someone asking a real question recently was the Candace Owens interview. She asked a great question about Julian Assange. His answer was whatever. She asked a good question about the vaccines. He said it's the greatest human achievement ever, which is a garbage fib. It's a total lie. But, she didn't push back too hard, but she did do more than most journalists. So my question to Trump would be, Bill Gates said that you offered him a position in your administration. I've never heard a right-wing journalist ask Trump. What I want to ask him is, are you friends with Bill Gates? Is he your boy? Did you ask him to be in the side? Are you guys working in unison? Because if you look at Trump, not only apparently did he offer Bill Gates a position in his administration, but he signed a 2019 universal flu executive order to modernize flu vaccines. He set up a task force. All of this stuff they used against you in 2020, Donald Trump signed over in 2019, a month right before Event 201, which was a pandemic simulation by Johns Hopkins, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the World Economic Forum, where they did a dry run for a coronavirus pandemic. That happened a month after Trump signed away this modernizing flu vaccines, create a task force, merge like 8 branches of government together for vaccines, like some real Orwellian stuff. And then the pandemic comes out. He's working with Moderna in January. This is not me being mean or rude, but this is a genuine question for me. People on the right wing baby Donald Trump so much. I'm starting to watch his actions and say, to me, I'm not saying he's controlled opposition like someone's paying him, although he did take $1 million from Pfizer for his inauguration and flip-flopped on his vaccine stance. But in general, it's like, maybe it's his ego, maybe it's his advisors, whatever excuse people want to make. But in my head, I'm like, I have a few questions for this guy. And in most people who support him's head, it's like, oh no, he just made a mistake. He's going to revert. He's going to do right next time. I'm like, he didn't make one mistake. He made like 50 mistakes in 2020. And you're just assuming, because you have a kind heart and you like the guy, that he knows he made a mistake and he totally feels the same way you feel and he's really going to right his wrongs. But my opinion as an analyst and pays attention, and I don't have a lot of hate in my heart, I see no signs that he's learned anything. I see no signs that he's who people think he is. And I've never heard anybody answer him a question. If you ask 99 out of 100 Trump supporters, what do you think of Bill Gates and the fact that he's talking about a new pandemic and the fact that he wants to build this pandemic force to stop a new that's more infrastructure, right? The more infrastructure you have, it's like the CARES Act. You build all this infrastructure and now there's nowhere left to run. And I'm not saying this is directly related to communism, but one of the ways the left wing and the Democrats and in time communists win is they take away private businesses, they destroy restaurants, they destroy their competition, and they create more government infrastructure. So your kid gets out of school and there's no jobs available, but he can be a climate activist for the government for $25 an hour. So they go do that. So that's one way that they kind of take over the future, is by getting rid of all the competition and then creating more of these fluffy government brainwashy jobs where the kids just run and work for the government. With that being said, that's just my question for Trump, where I genuinely want to know. And it sucks because on the left wing, they just badger him and make no sense. And on the right wing, they just lick his boots, where it's like, they're like, he really learned. I'm like, I genuinely think Donald Trump is friends with Bill Gates. I think he likes Bill Gates. I think he offered him a position. I think Donald Trump is totally on the opposite of what his base is with that certain thing. And I'm not saying Bill Gates has never done anything good, because Xbox is pretty cool and Microsoft created that. But in general, it's like Bill Gates is one of these guys that you can almost guarantee agrees with the Great Reset. You know, he has a totally different philosophical thought process about America than myself. He thinks differently than Elon Musk. Elon Musk believes in the First Amendment thoroughly. Bill Gates is more of a censorship guy. Elon Musk believes that population growth is an issue because he thinks there's not enough people being born, and Elon Musk is no dummy. Bill Gates thinks the opposite. He thinks population growth needs to be curbed because there's too many people. So these people are not unquestionable, and it all goes hand in hand, where it's like, if you create this pandemic team that's going to oversee the next pandemic, are you going to save us from a new pandemic? Maybe. Maybe you have this great idea that could save us from a new pandemic, but maybe you're creating infrastructure that's going to guarantee more lockdowns, more mask mandates, more forced vaccinations that, don't work like they originally said they were going to work. So just because they establish something doesn't mean they're going to prevent a pandemic. They could create one through just overreacting. I believe they overreacted in March of 2020, but to be quite honest, I don't think it was an overreaction. I think they had all of this planned. And I'm not saying this from a conspiracy theory angle. I've done a lot of research from all the stuff they did in 2019. They were building up to this, and then miraculously it comes right at the exact time, and they do everything they said they were going to do 4 or 5 months ago. And then Fauci gets on television recently and said lockdowns aren't what they're doing in Shanghai. Lockdowns aren't to create zero COVID. Lockdowns are to keep people inside so we have a vaccine. Oh, so it's a vaccine sales pitch. You keep people inside, scare the crap out of them, treat them like shit, kill thousands of elderly people, destroy people's mentality, make people fatter, ruin the health of our country, then let them outside and Big Pharma makes a killing. Thanks for admitting that. But in general, this is my huge question. We know the Democrats, when it comes to this idea of the Great Reset, which I talked about earlier, I'm holding up the book just so you can see, they have ideas against competition, pro-big government, solidarity over creativity, things that are the exact opposite of what conservatives and Republicans are doing. And here's the thing, to the Democrat Party's credit, although they lie constantly, they actually do what's in best interest of their future, in the sense of they want to control everything. They want to turn this country into Ukraine, where, by the way, Zelensky is more of a favorite to win the next election than Putin is. Not because Zelensky's popular. Before he consolidated and banned every political party, he was actually almost a 50-50 favorite to lose the election. So when Ukraine was a semi-democracy, Zelensky was a favorite to lose. Now that Zelensky banned all the political parties like a communist and took over the media, now he's basically, he's like a dictator. How could he possibly lose when he banned all the opposing political parties? They're going after people who are sympathetic to Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine is less free than Russia right now. And that's what they want for America. But in general, the Democrats are implementing what's best for their future. They don't want you to be free. They don't want you to breathe air without a mask on your face when they tell you to. They don't want you to leave your house when they don't. It's a total slave scheme, Orwellian, dystopian, communist nightmare. And they're just out in the open with it. 5 years ago, you couldn't get elected as a Democrat if you didn't pretend to believe in the First Amendment. Now, they're openly saying they don't think citizens should have the power to speak out against big pharma and government. And they're just being honest about it. But to their credit, although I despise what they're doing, and I think they're the greater of two evils, and I'm a Republican voter at this moment in my life for that reason, the Democrats walk in lockstep towards exactly the future that they want. This, singular, don't speak out, don't talk. And Republicans are like even more shameful, not because they're worse, they're better, but they're all like controlled opposition frauds, where with one hand, they're signing the deals for the Great Reset. On one hand, they're signing away your sovereignty. On one hand, they're signing over everything that's going to destroy you. On one hand, they're doing socialism and communism. On one hand, they're giving $15 billion, not of creative competitive markets, but socialist government mergers, merging big pharma, which is just wildly corrupt, with the government, which is corrupt, doing backdoor deals. And then they get on television and tell you that they're helping you. This is my question for real. If anybody has a spine on the right wing and interviews Donald Trump, Ask him if he's friends with Bill Gates. Ask him what he thinks about Bill Gates. Because probably 999 out of 1,000 Trump voters think that Bill Gates is trying to destroy the country and he's in on, all of this left-wing stuff that's terrible. Donald Trump has never had to answer a question about this. And I can almost guarantee you he does not feel the same way that you feel about it, because he works with Bill Gates. He offered him a position. If Bill Gates says jump, Trump apparently says how high. He did everything that Bill Gates could have possibly wanted, but then he puts on this giant act that he's going to save you. I saw Governor, what's his name? Mike Huckabee, seems like a nice guy, right? He was complaining about being anonymous on Twitter. It was a bad take, but I get what he was saying. Anyway, it's like he's worried about that. No problem. I'm worried about his daughter during 2021, like Donald Trump. Alabama was one of the least vaccinated places in the country. And here's my thing. I'm not telling people what to do personally, as far as your personal sovereignty and freedom. I don't care what you do with your body. If you want to get 17 vaccines, drink Coca-Cola, and, throw Faygo in your face like a juggalo, whatever, you know what I'm saying? You're free to do that in this country. But here's the thing with the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, it actually kind of does affect me, but not in the way the left-wing media is saying. The more people who comply, the more chance we have of being locked down or forced masked or losing our freedom forever. And there have been times that they've admitted this on television, that part of what they do with their rules is social psychology. If they tell you to lock down for 30 days and you only lock down for 15 days, Wolanski said she changed her rules based on the fact that nobody listened. So part of this equation, unfortunately, it shouldn't be this way. But since they went so authoritarian, it's this equation. If America was obedient, then we would still have a lot of these rules. There's places where everybody's still wearing masks, in the Philippines and places in Europe, Asia, China. Do I have to tell you twice about what's going on in China? And part of the problem in these countries is not just their government, it's the fact that they have so many people that just comply. In America, we have this 1776 energy where people really want their freedom and liberty. So what I'm trying to say, in 2021, it became wildly obvious that the vaccine didn't do what Rochelle Wolanski and Rachel Maddow originally said. It became wildly obvious that it was a game of numbers. If they could get 95% of people to listen, we're screwed. It became, unfortunately, a numbers game. If we get a 95% of people get the vaccine, are we going to reach herd immunity? No, because you can still get and spread the virus. So it's not like we're going to reach herd immunity with those numbers, but what we will reach is herd compliance, and then we're screwed. So think about what Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Donald Trump were doing. It's diabolical, actually. They were going to Alabama, one of the bravest. I'm not going to say they're smarter than every other state, but I would say because there's smart people everywhere. But instinctually, Alabama has that Republican energy. I don't want to get it. That's my freedom. I don't want to get the vaccine. And Sarah Huckabee, sometimes I call her Sarah Cuckabee Sanders because it's funny. She goes down to Alabama and starts trying to write op-eds and sell them on the vaccine. Oh, go get it. It's the Trump vaccine. She's telling him, oh, it's great. And it's like, Sarah Huckabee, okay? Do you not know what you're doing? I don't care what people do health-wise, but if Alabama was as obedient as New York City, this country would be like communist China. The only reason this country is semi-free is because of Ron DeSantis, is because of conservatives all over the Bible Belt, is because of brave people on every level that stood up against the tyranny. And you're basically acting like controlled opposition, trying to push them in the direction of the compliance rate that people that are operating the Great Reset and Democrats, etc., they want. So what are they doing? And same with Donald Trump. It's a cure. Go get it. I got it. You should get it. It's like they're controlled opposition. I don't know if they're purposely doing it. Are they stupid? Are they sold out? Are they imbeciles? Are they just like full of their ego that they just don't know what they're doing? I don't know what they're doing, but I'm just telling you, that's the reality of the pandemic. It's a numbers game. If everybody listened as much as Sarah Huckabee Sanders wants you to listen in Alabama, and everybody listened to her and went and got their vaccine, we're not going to be free right now. The only reason this country is free is because it's a competition. That's why we need to keep sovereignty. It's like, if Florida's open for business and Los Angeles is locked down, at a certain point, I don't believe they would have opened so soon if they didn't have to. It's like you're losing business, you're losing people, you're losing tax money, you're looking like a fool. The only reason that Governor Abbott, another half-wit fraud, of Texas. The only reason he opened is because he saw Ron DeSantis, and Ron DeSantis made him look like an idiot by opening so early and really pushing this pro-business, pro-freedom situation. So, this country is free not because of the Republican Party. 2020, 2021, what didn't they do for the Great Reset? They printed all the money for the Great Reset. They signed the vaccine deal for the Great Reset. They passed the 2019 executive order for the Great Reset. They started working, collaborating with Moderna before the lockdowns for the Great Reset. They signed the CARES Act and Operation Warp Speed. They gave them all the vaccine money for the Great Reset. They played into the lockdowns for 2 or 3 months for the Great Reset. They set their supporters up at the Capitol on January 6th for the Great Reset. They ran around the country in 2021 to the least vaccinated areas of the country and tried to get people vaccinated for the Great Reset. How are they not controlled op? I'm not saying that they're being paid to, or I don't know. I'm not an idiot, so I'm trying to figure out, are they dumber than me? I don't think so. Are they just full of shit? Is politics just a big WWE show? And I have to repeat myself real quick because I want to be clear. On a personal level, I don't care what people do. If you're a vegan, whatever. If you eat meat, whatever. If you're not in my family and you're not somebody that's close to me, I don't control you, and I don't control my family either, but I'm going to say more to them. Like when it came to the vaccine, I had different conversations with my sister, my brother, my father than I would have with someone else. Cause I'm not your doctor, but if I'm your family member, we have deeper convos. When it comes to personal choice, I literally don't care because I don't want to be everybody. I don't think everybody should have my exact health regimen. Might not be for you, or you might not make good decisions, or I might not make good decisions. Maybe you're jacked and you make better decisions. That's the world, right? But when it comes to compliance rate, I appreciate people in Alabama who said no to Sarah Huckabee Sanders and said no to Donald Trump, although they weren't mandating it. They were controlled opping people, trying to get the compliance rate up. I'm sorry, but if Alabama got 99% vaccination rate, it would do virtually nothing to herd immunity because there's no data that proves that it reaches herd immunity. Every place in the world that's massively vaccinated, you're finding cases, repeat cases. So many people in politics that have 3 vaccines are getting sick. You can cite the hospitalization data, but the point I'm getting to, when it comes to stopping transmission, that's not happening. So what would it do if everybody listened to Sarah Huckabee Sanders and they went and got their Trump vaccine like controlled op Sarah was trying to get people to do? Would you reach herd immunity? No. Would you be protected by hospitalizations? Allegedly for now. Let's see at the long-term trials. But in general, you would reach mass compliance rate. And once you reach mass compliance rate, you're done. When everybody listens, it's over. That's it. Part of this game is standing up. I had to do a lot less than other people. Do you know why? It's not just because I work from home and have a job. It's because I said no. And your whole life changes when you say no. I live in a different reality than other people. There's some people that wear a mask for 40, 50 hours a week. I wouldn't do it. I'd rather be broke and homeless than do that. That's my personal feeling about it. But there is a certain power. I don't want people to go broke and homeless, but there is a certain power to resisting the tyranny. And that's why when you go to other countries, they're still living in 2020. It hasn't changed. If you fly overseas, you're going to notice a lot of these countries, they're living like you were, and it's like a mass psychosis where they're like, oh, we all just comply. And I'm like, yeah, that's why America's more free, because we don't have this history of oh, we're just going to listen to the government and we're going to do this for 20 years. So it was a good thing. Trump should have been going down to there and telling people not to do it. And I'm not telling him to make a decision for their health, but it's at least be honest and be like, hey, we appreciate you. I instead of being oh, go get the vaccine, don't get mad. It's I appreciate you for not complying because that's actually helping our freedom right now. That's just the truth. It's not anti-vaxxer. It's just the unfortunate reality. If everybody acted like New York City, this country would be completely screwed. So when it comes to, I'm trying to figure out, and I know people are unfortunately a little bit emotional about this topic because they don't want to believe, they want to believe, no. And trust me, I'm voting GOP in November. They're the better option. They're the lesser of 2 evils. It's like giving me 2 houses to live in. I could act like I see no difference, but I do see a difference. The GOP is slightly better. Unfortunately, domestically, they'll help a little bit. And I'm slightly semi-grateful that they're doing something. At least they're not Justin Trudeau. But at the same time, I have to be honest about myself on a macro level, on a Great Reset level, on a big government level, on a world tyranny level. People think they're this much different than the Democrats, but they're really like not at all. On every level of the Great Reset in 2019, 2020, and 2021, Republicans played into it all 2019, all 2020. They played into it 80% of the time in 2021 and then pulled away and said, but we disagree with mandates. And I'm like, that's great. I appreciate that. I'm glad you do that. I'm still going to vote for you because you're better on that topic. But you played into the hands of the Great Reset. If there was a list of 60 things, let's just say you played in 55 times and you didn't play in 5 times. So it's like, you're not really doing as much as people think they're doing. And people just think that Donald Trump is going to get back into office and do the right thing when he showed no signs of doing it. No Republicans ask him any sort of questions. And I'm not going to say it's starting to tick me off because I don't like to get angry, but I'm starting to think that a lot of Republican influencers, they just want money or something, because it's like all they do is sell Trump merch, Trump merch, Trump merch, Trump merch, but they won't question Donald Trump. And I'm like, what, are you just trying to sell Trump merch, or do you like why won't you question him on it? Because there's been no real questions to this guy. He didn't do the right thing for the last 3 years. He has no signs of doing the right thing. He's better than Biden, of course, but at what point are we kind of just being set up? Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to read a few comments now, but that's my total, summary for this one. The DHS Secretary Mayorkas went on television and said that this disinformation leader is neutral. He knows that's a lie. I know that's a lie. Everyone knows that's a lie. As somebody that is honest, I think I would do, just to be honest, I would do a good job if I was that position, because I wouldn't pick sides. And I'm like, okay, this is my job. I can't be biased now. But this lady that he chose is far from neutral. He knows that. And the fact that they have the hubris to create a disinformation board with somebody that has spread disinformation in the last 2 years, while the DHS secretary goes on television and spreads obvious, provable disinformation that she's neutral, is just psychotic. And then when it comes to the Great Reset, obviously the Democrats are knee deep in it. Obviously there's global players that are trying to turn America into Europe and China. Obviously the Republican Party is the only chance that we have, but I would say that at this moment they are really almost completely controlled opposition, in the sense of, when it comes to macro Great Reset stuff, they've played into almost every single aspect of it. They have absolutely no shame and humility for it. They've tried to kick out people like Thomas Massie, who called it out from the beginning. And it's almost like they're gatekeeping the controlled opposition. And my solution for people that are like, well, what's the solution? People, influencers, etc., they have to stop softballing Trump and the leaders of the GOP and ask these really tough questions, because they're building all this infrastructure. It's like funding Ukraine, and then it's like funding ISIS and Ukraine. And I'm not saying they're doing that, but it's like, and then they do something with the weapons, and you're like, dang, I didn't want them to do that. And it's like, yeah, but you gave them all that stuff. What did you think they were going to do with it? So that's kind of how I see the GOP. They print the money, they spend the bills, they grow big government, and then they act shocked when big government does what big government does. The only way to really stop this, I don't know if it's possible, but the only way to stop it would be a leader who actually wants to stop it and makes the tough decisions. Not somebody who's friends with Bill Gates like Donald Trump is, telling you all that, oh, I get along with Fauci. Listen to how he talks about Fauci. He likes Fauci. He's friends with Fauci. He did business deals with Fauci. He offered Bill Gates a position in the government. He's not on your team, but people don't want to hear that. So it's like, what's the point of even going to a rally then? If you're such in denial about what your party's doing, like, why even pretend like you're doing anything? Yeah, they're better than Democrats, but the only way this is going to turn around, and my solution is, people have to pay attention. It's the same with compliance. Rochelle Walensky admitted on television, well, I wanted them to stay isolated for this many days, but people would not listen, so I had to change it. It's the same with the Republican Party. Right now, they're gatekeeping controlled opposition because they know their supporters, I'm not going to say are dumb, but are naive and foolish and loyal enough to just run in circles around Daddy Trump, the vaccine salesman. And they have no reason to have to change it, because they know that the party and the people in the party will go to CPAC and clap like seals, clap for Ted Cruz, clap for, it's like clappity clap. They know it's just this big clap fest and nobody cares. And everybody thinks they have a plan when they don't. So the real solution is for people to understand in politics when enough people reach critical mass, just like with vaccines. If everybody would have listened to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, controlled op Trump, we would have reached critical mass and these people would have been treating us like garbage. The only reason our country's free is because enough people did not listen to them. That's just the reality. And it's the same thing with the GOP. If everybody just licks Trump's boots and acts like he has a plan, he actually doesn't, and he's going to set you up for failure. But it's not even Donald Trump's fault. It's your fault for not manning up and Americaning up and being like, nah, I have some questions and I have some concerns. That's when this all changes, is when the GOP, a majority of them, stop treating Trump like a giant baby or like a false idol and treat him just like Ted Cruz or Mike Pence. Ask the tough questions. Let them know that you know what they're doing instead of just like, oh, these people will do whatever I say. That's when this all changes. It's so simple. It's so easy, but it takes people admitting, yes, they're better than Democrats. Yes, I'm going to vote for them, but I'm going to stop babying them and softballing them and let them know that I know what they're doing. And that's when they're going to change. So that's the solution, folks. It's super simple, but it takes people not treating politics like a Oakland Raiders game, and painting yourself and telling you that you're fighting AOC. It's not going to happen. All right, I'm going to read a few comments, put them on the screen, and then I'm going to end this and put it on my podcasting app. Let me see. Someone, Lee Skywalker said, people still need to wake up. All of these parties, DNR, organized CDC, FDA, are on the same team. Well, I mean, they're definitely all working together. I mean, if you really want to know how these, I want to pull it up real quick. Maybe I'll read it directly. There's a 2019 executive order that Donald Trump signed for the flu order. I'm going to read it for you because this is pretty crazy. All right. Executive order Trump. Let me see. Modernizing. So if you want to know how government works hand in hand, all right, it's crazy because I don't know if you guys know. I'll just do a little brief or run it back. Event 201 was a pandemic dry run simulation by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, World Economic Forum, and Johns Hopkins. And basically they had J&J people, government people. They brought together all these bigwigs of every branch of not every branch of government, but government, media, pharma. They brought them together in October of 2019 before the pandemic to say, if a coronavirus pandemic happens, here's what we're going to do. We're going to shut down travel. We're going to cut disinformation. This was all planned. I'm not saying they planned the virus because they'll kick your video off if you say that, but I'm just saying their response to the virus was absolutely planned. And they planned it in November or October and then live streamed it or put it on YouTube in November. It's on YouTube. It was before the pandemic. It was called Event 201. So a month before Event 201, September 19th, 2019, Donald Trump passed this executive order. It says, executive order on modernizing influenza vaccines in the United States to promote national security and public health. How would that promote national security? So it says right here, influenza viruses are constantly changing as they circulate globally in humans and animals. Relatively minor changes in these viruses cause annual season influenza outbreaks, which result in millions of illnesses, hundreds of thousands of hospitalizations, and tens of thousands of deaths, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of similar rhetoric to Event 201. So I want to just read real quick because it creates a task force. And I want to tell you all the government agencies that Trump merged to make a Orwellian vaccine force. All right. I found it. Section 3 of the executive order. Ready? National Influenza Vaccine Task Force. Remember the Fauci task force? Oh, Trump's task force. They created a task force for vaccines, not in March, but in September, a month before Event 201. Here it is. National Influenza Vaccine Task Force. There and hereby establish a task force. This task force shall identify actions to achieve the objectives identified in Section 2 of this order and monitor and report on the implementation of those actions. The task force shall be co-chaired by the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Health of Human Services or their designees. Here's where it gets very odd. In addition to those co-chairs, the task force shall consist of a senior official from the following executive branch departments, agencies, and offices. Ready? The Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Veteran Affairs, the Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. FDA, the CDC, the National Institute of Health, the Center of Medicare and Medicaid Services, and the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, called BARDA. The co-chairs may jointly invite additional federal government representations with the consent of applicable executive department, agency, or office head to attend the meetings of the task force. I could go on. You should read it yourself. But think about what happened a month before Event 201. Donald Trump created a modernizing influenza vaccine task force that brought together, ready? This is for a vaccine. The Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, the Department of Agriculture, Veteran Affairs, Homeland Security, FDA, CDC, NIH, and 2 other agencies. Does that seem like small government libertarianism? Me, I want to keep I want to keep big pharma off my back, but Donald Trump literally combines like 10 agencies together to create this Orwellian psychotic. Why would they need the Department of Justice? Oh, I know why. Because they don't have any liability for side effects, injuries, or deaths under the PrEP Act. So, wow, I guess now they have the Justice Department on their side because, they don't have to pay for anything. You get what I'm saying? So if you're trying to stop the Great Reset, like most Republicans think they are, how are you going to do that when your president literally tries to hire Bill Gates and creates a psychotic Orwellian big government task force for vaccines that brings together every agency in the government? People don't want to ask these questions. So it's like, it is what it is, but we're asking it here. All right, we'll read a few more comments. Someone said, what am I reading? It's called the Executive Order on Modernizing Influenza Vaccines in the United States to Promote National Security and Public Health. It's, once again, an executive order that was passed in 2019, a month before Event 201 and 7 months before the pandemic. And it created the task force that would probably eventually turn into the coronavirus task force. It was all written in executive order. So, I'm just going to wrap this stream up, but this is the point I'm trying to get. Let's go slowly for people that can't handle reality. Democrats are the worst of 2 parties, in my opinion, and in anybody's opinion that's paying attention. The Democrats are full blown into the Great Reset. Do you notice that the Democrats never just like randomly hire a libertarian? Like that doesn't happen. Like they put all these like far left people into power. It's like if you watch the judge that Biden put in, what's her name? Jackson Brown or whatever her name is. Do you think she's going to be like a No, she's going to be as far left as they can go. Oh, but Amy Coney Barrett, chosen by Donald Trump, just miraculously is pro-mandatory vaccination. Brett Kavanaugh has sided with mandatory vaccination. Isn't that weird? When we get somebody in power, we're always getting some flip-flopping, half and half, half-wit that pushes against us at the most crucial points of humanity. But when Biden gets someone in, they're agreeing with him like 100% of the time. Democrats aren't stupid. When it comes to power, it's like they're putting in people that will empower their agenda, and they're unapologetically doing it. When you have Republicans, it's this controlled op half-wits where like 80% of the time they're doing what Democrats want. 80% of the time they're caving to big pharma. They're working with Bill Gates. They're working with Fauci. They're making government bigger. They're printing the money. They're giving vaccine manufacturers more money, more power, more control. And then they get on Fox News and Newsmax and tell you that they're, taking on the system. They're just not, folks. That's just the truth. So if people want to realize it and listen to my solution, which is really peaceful, easy, legal, free, not at all remotely hard to do, which is basically just stop acting like this isn't happening, everything can change. It's the same way things change when people stop complying to tyranny. If people don't want to do it and they want to hallucinate this fantasy fairy tale that Trump is exactly like them and he's going to save America and he's fighting big government, it's not true. He's better than Biden. He'll raise stock prices, which I would appreciate. He'll make your 401k better for a time, and I appreciate that. But is he going to stop this macro game that they're doing? No, because they're in on it. And if you really research why they're in on it, you start to see the money trail. Trump was the biggest vaccine skeptic on Twitter. Not the biggest, but he was a huge vaccine skeptic when he went into office. He's not as dumb as people think he is. Like, oh, he's just some big dummy. It's like, no, he knows people that are injured. So he's always been curious. He's met with Robert Kennedy. He knows exactly how vaccine injuries work. But when he ran for office, he took $1 million from Pfizer for his inauguration. So if I were to pay $50,000 to the GOP, which I don't, but I could probably get a meeting with somebody. That's how these things work. Oh, $5,000 at this event, you could talk to Don Jr. for 2 minutes. I mean, it's like a hobnobbing sort of thing. Go to these big like donor meetings and you get to sit there and talk to people. And if you pay enough, you get to take a picture. So if you pay $1 million, you don't think you're getting a meeting. You think you just give money. No, you give money for a reason. So he got the money. He went from a skeptic to a full-blown salesman. And miraculously, the judges that he chose also side with mandatory vaccinations. Amy Coney Barrett, before Trump picked her, was known supporting the lockdowns. I pointed this out thanks to Robert Barnes. If you don't know, a good lawyer, Robert Barnes, he pointed this out before Trump chose Amy Coney Barrett. He said, she's pro-lockdown. Why would you choose a pro-lockdown, pro-mandate conservative judge? Maybe Trump's an idiot. Maybe he made a mistake. Maybe he's paid off. I don't know. I can't really figure out what it is, but I find it fascinating that he gets money and his views go from left to right. And all of a sudden he can't pick a judge that's going to side with us on maybe the most important issue of the decade. Yet Biden's judge, I'm sure, will side with him 20 times out of 20 because she's as far left as these judges come. Republicans are not playing to win, regardless if people want to admit it or not. I don't know. I don't understand personally the benefit to not admitting that. I really don't see it. Like it's like being on a basketball team that just keeps losing over and over. And even though certain things are going in your direction in the fourth quarter, it's like, the first 3 years, it's like you're up 20 points and then you end up losing the game by 30 and, you're in a lockdown. And at a certain point, I would want to reflect and be like, all right, why did this happen? It's not just the Democrats. It's not just the media. They're horrible, but it's not just a mistake or an advisor. I mean, it's like, it's like blaming the refs. Oh, it's the ref. It's like, yes, it's partially them, but we could have also done more to prevent them from, stealing the game from us, stuff like that. It's like, I don't understand the benefit to just being in denial about this. To me, being in denial about it is going to lead to nothing. It's going to lead to America failing. It's going to lead to the Democrats ultimately getting their agenda, whether they win the presidency or not, because they're able to shift the Overton window. And, somehow their leaders are just totally in the bag with their agenda, but our leaders are 70% in the bag with their agenda. And the reason they get away with it is because people think it's fine. You just got to give people a personality. They've been doing this for probably 100 years. It's like, what was Ronald Reagan? He was an actor, but he was also a cool guy, right? Reagan was cool. Give him Reagan. Clinton was cool, right? I mean, what he did, maybe not cool, but honestly, he was more moderate than Obama. But, Clinton's cool. He plays the saxophone. Black people like him. He's like, playing the sax. People are like, that's one cool white guy. And then they give you George Bush. Not as cool, but he's kind of cool. He's got like a little Southern drawl, he's a little charming, they give you George Bush, start a few wars. Oh, and then people start getting pissed at George Bush. And it's like, oh my gosh, he really fooled me. He's not who well, here's this half black, half white guy who talks like this. I'm going to, I hope change will come. James will come. And you're like, oh, this guy plays basketball. He likes time. And then you get 8 years of Obama and you're like, man, what changes? And then change doesn't come. You end up starting a war in Libya and, there's some massive 2008 crash or whatever. Probably not his fault, but you get it. And then people are furious. And it's like, man, where do we turn from here? It's like, oh, here's this guy that we like that's saying all the right things. He's going to lock Hillary Clinton up. He's going to fight the deep state. And then he takes money from Big Pharma, doesn't lock Hillary up, ends up getting his own supporters locked up, caves to Big Pharma, works with Fauci, works with Gates, works with Pfizer, works with Moderna, does socialism, does communism, funnels trillions of dollars to corrupt people, gets his supporters set up at the Capitol, gets out. And now Joe Biden's in office. And now people don't even remember 2020. It's like, oh, we need Donald Trump back. And it's like, do you though? That's what you want? Then what's the point? They're so brilliant at like getting people that are charming and, that people like. Joe Biden being the exception. He's a just total fraudulent crap show because the Democratic Party is just so immoral and corrupt that they can't even figure out how to get a good puppet anymore. That's how bad they are. But, I think the future changes when people admit what's going on and just ask more questions. What would it hurt? How many interviews has Trump done with Republicans in the last year? 20. Would it hurt for people to ask him real questions? I mean, I haven't heard anybody ask him a real question. They're just like, tell us about Afghanistan and Joe Biden. And then he goes to left-wing press and it's Piers Morgan trying to set him up. It's like, would it hurt Republicans to ask him a few questions? Because every question he's answered so far, he sounds like a shilly salesman. He's like, I saved the world from the Spanish flu, 100 million. It's like, he's not trustworthy at all. He's not even pretending to be trustworthy. It's not even like 2017 Trump where he's saying all the right things. He's saying a few right things and just trying to sell vaccines harder than Bill Gates. And people still are like, yeah, I trust him. I want him back. It's like, without asking questions, without scrutiny, you're just going to set yourself up again. So the solution is so simple. It's just people have to take control of their own destiny, be honest, and show the Republican Party that you're not a bunch of sheep and pawns. Because, you know, one reason that elites do this, left-wing, right-wing, billionaires, etc., and I don't support them, by the way, because I respect people, but I do believe in this. I do believe in like self-accountability. And at the end of the day, you know, you don't get from here to here in your life without working. So if you want to be jacked, you got to work out. If you want to be great at sports, you need good genetics, but you also need to work hard. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to put in the hours most won't. If you want to level up in your job, you got to earn it. If that job doesn't give it to you, you got to go find a new job. So the world is about, and I really, this is why I can't stand the Great Reset, because they don't believe in competition. And I believe that it's important to a functioning society, and it's just reality. But anyway, it's like in order to do anything in this world, you have to earn it. So I'm not even really upset with Donald Trump, or as much as upset as I am with Joe Biden. I'm more upset with our country. It's like, were people really dumb enough to vote for Joe Biden? Was that real? You know, are people really dumb enough on the right or complacent enough to not to be offended by the questions I'm trying to ask? If that's the case, then there's a reason that the elites treat everybody like sheep and cattle. I'm not saying I think people are sheep or cattle. I would never dehumanize people. But at the same time, you go to China and the Philippines and you go to New York City, and people are walking around with masks on their face, you know, not asking questions. They're literally begging for lockdowns. I mean, what else do you call someone that's like, please lock me up? Like, what do you, like you're like a chicken or something that wants to go to a factory farm, you know, and be like a caged chicken. It's like, please do it to me. It's like, how are the elites supposed to respect people when you don't even respect yourself? You know, they're probably laughing hysterically, like, holy crap, these people are stupid. You know, these people are full-blown brainwashed. These people are begging for enslavement, and they hate the idea of having the First Amendment. Do people not realize throughout human history, the envy of the modern world is the First Amendment, the ability as a human? People don't even think straight. Like, there used to be kings and queens and slaveries, and if you weren't born into royalty, you're not getting shit, right? Yeah, the world's not perfect. It's not fair. I don't come from royalty. I don't come from great wealth and great connections, but because my parents cared enough to put me in a situation, let me work, let me do my own thing. I had the freedom to think, the freedom to speak, the freedom to try to be an entrepreneur with a cell phone. That's how I got here. That's the envy of the modern world. And you have hundreds of millions of Americans, most that are left-wing, who don't even value that. The envy. I am not a slave. I am not, you know, a peasant. I am not this oppressed worker that can't level up in life because I'm not a king or a queen and I'm not, you know, connected to the royal family. This is how societies were for thousands of years. No matter how hard you worked, you weren't really getting to that point. It wasn't as easy to get from here to here in any sort of field. You couldn't do it. It wasn't possible. This is one of the only times in modern history where it's even semi-possible. And you have people begging to take that right away from them. Take away my First Amendment. Take away my Second Amendment. Give it to the government. Give it to Bezos. Give it to Zuckerberg. It's like, how could they not look at you like sheep? You know, they're like these, like, so the point I'm getting to, as a left winger, you need to demand respect, because why would the elites give you respect when you literally don't even respect yourself? Like, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, and people don't want to drink. So there's nothing really anyone could do for you until you at least demand an ounce of respect for yourself. And that's the same as the Republican Party. It's like, Donald Trump is a man. Donald Trump is a businessman. He's accomplished a lot in life. He has worked hard and, you know, done a lot of stuff. He's a man. He's not a baby. He's not a big. So, you know, at the same time, you're your individual person. You are an American citizen. You are some, you know, like, do you have no respect for yourself? Like, you're going to let this guy walk all over you. You're going to let him play into the Great Reset's hands, work with Bill Gates, work with Fauci, show on television he's learned absolutely nothing, lie about the vaccine and say it saved 100 million lives, claim it's the greatest human accomplishment, which is such a wild, insane, stupid lie. It's not even funny. He's proving he's not trustworthy. He's proving it. And you're just going to be like, yeah, that's good. And, the real problem is people like Anomaly who wants to ask him a question and, doesn't want to just lay over and act like that's great. It's like, no, I have respect for myself. If everybody in the Republican Party had my mentality, the Republican Party would be 1,000 times better, but they have no incentive to be better because really now the game is like the Overton window shifted so far. It's like, we're better than Biden. And it's like, yeah, that's amazing because, this little knob that goes on my light, this is better than Joe Biden. So, let's let my little knob run for president. This, Mike Lindell's pillows are better than Joe Biden. Put a My Pillow in the White House. It'll steal less of my money than Joe Biden and start less wars and give less money to Ukraine. So yeah, you're better than Biden. I agree. That's why I vote Republican. But it's not like I'm like, yeah, they're crushing because they're better than Biden. Like that means nothing to me. That's like, just shoveling like dirt in your mouth and being like, it's better than feces. It's like, yeah, but there's also a way to be better than this. So it's like they're never going to respect their own base until people respect themselves. So not even upset with Donald Trump or even like elites right now. It's like left wingers literally want to be enslaved and they get unhinged about the thought of like, having like basic human freedom that everybody in the world envied for the last 300 years. So what's the point? Like, why should I feel bad for them? It's like they want that. They have Stockholm syndrome. And then you get to the right, it's absolutely better. But in many ways, they have Stockholm syndrome with Donald Trump, where, it's like, I'm not mad at him. Like, you don't deserve or want the basic things to happen. So why would it? It's not going to happen. It only happens when enough people demand it and enough people show the GOP, we know what you're doing. We get it. We see your whole shtick. We're not going to fall for this fact that, oh, I'm really different. And they do it on the left wing too. Like AOC comes around and she fools a bunch of young kids. Oh, I'm different. I'm AOC. She's a psychotic, angry pigeon who absolutely is no way better than Nancy Pelosi. Maybe she's better on some issues, but for the most part, she's probably just as bad, if not worse. And that's not a good thing. Nancy Pelosi sucks. So it's like they have their ways of trying to draw people in. Bernie Sanders was another one. He did a pretty good job of acting like he's different. Not really. And Trump is like the ultimate one. He told people for 4 years, I'm so different. In some ways, he's slightly different, but in many ways, he's as establishment comes. He's proven that. Push comes to shove, he won't even say anything bad about Fauci. DeSantis is like, I don't like Fauci. Trump, every time we talk, I get along with him quite well. We know you're friends, Trump, just like you're friends with Bill Gates. You offered him a position. Your whole base can't stand Bill Gates because what he's trying to do to the world, but you're a great friend. We get it. But you get what I'm saying? I'm the only Republican or conservative that has the balls to say this. Everybody else sucks up to Trump. I don't know what they want. Do they want to sell Trump merch? Do they want to get invited to Mar-a-Lago? Are they purposely sending the Republicans to the slaughter? I'm not really sure. I'm guessing it has a lot to do with like, power and money, where it's like, I'm going to make six figures this year if I just shut my mouth and lick Trump's shoes. But, if I question him, now I'm going to get hit by both sides. I'm going to have left wingers mad at me and right wingers. It's a lot to deal with. It sucks, It's more fun, I guess, to just have one party and just be like, hey, everybody agrees with me, but it's just not the truth. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Someone said I fell for Trump. It's not even I don't even want to make it too dramatic for people because it's okay to feel a certain way. I'm not asking people to hate Trump. I'm not asking people to, reject him completely. That's not what I'm doing. I just want people to ask him questions. Don't just lick his shoes, because then nothing's going to change. People have to let the GOP know what you did in like when I say this stuff. I had a great podcast too. I have a lot of them. Dream Rare podcast. Go subscribe and give it 5 stars if you can. But in general, when I hear all the excuses people make for Trump, it's just it's almost just like pathetic, because I'm not even, let's just say I'm not even upset or mad. I'm just having a conversation like, oh, he doesn't know about vaccines. So you think he's dumb? You think he got fooled. It's like, are you concerned he might get fooled again since he got fooled 7 times and he's made like, it's like, even if you're right about all that stuff, why are you so cool with it? I'm not saying you have to hate him. I'm not asking you to reject him completely. You could even vote for him next election. I'm just saying, like, the fact that people cover for him, if Ted Cruz did this stuff, no one would cover for him. People have thrown Mike Pence off a metaphorical cliff, and not even for the right reasons. Pence, there's 20 reasons to hate Pence, not even the reason people hate him. It's like, every other politician would be absolutely heavily scrutinized, but with him, it's like, I'm just going to turn into a PR team for him. It's like the media with Joe Biden. Fact check, he shook the hand. That's Republicans with Trump. They have every excuse for why he turned into a communist. I don't care what the excuse or reason was. How about we make a message in our party and say, never do that again? Because when you listen to DeSantis, I'm not even saying I fully trust him, but he's like, never. When you listen to Trump, he still won't admit the lockdowns were a mistake. He thinks it's all good. And people allow him to think that way. It's your fault. It's this party's fault. So, I don't even want people to hate him or reject him. I just want people to have an ounce of respect for themselves and stop acting like what happened in 2020 was amazing and cool. It really wasn't. And this is the reason I'm not in on the whole election conversation. It's not because I think elections are completely fair. It's because if I look at the 10 steps of how this election, the 2020 election, went bad for Trump and why Joe Biden's there, I could say Trump made this mistake, made this mistake, made this mistake, made this mistake, played into this, played into this, played into the socialists, played into the communists, played into the Great Reset, played into Big Pharma, set himself and his base up for failure, and then screws it up because there's mass mail-in ballots everywhere, and now he wants to just throw Mike Pence under the bus. Mike Pence was a Hail Mary. I don't even like Mike Pence. I like Trump more than Pence, but, Trump is such a selfish person. He has no humility, no accountability. He can't admit, I probably screwed myself by not going after big tech. The GOP and Trump, I don't agree with the censorship of Jim Jordan or Trump, obviously not. But one thing that it is kind of like a bittersweet karma for them is in 2016, who helped Donald Trump win? Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos. I mean, these people were massive. Say what you want about Milo. He was really the energy behind the Trump campaign, not with them, but just on media, just, going off and stuff. People like Alex Jones who have like 1 billion views, with a YouTube channel. All these people really supported Trump in 2016. They all got axed off the internet in 2018. And Trump and Jim Jordan and the GOP, they couldn't give a shit until they started getting shadow banned and banned in 2020. And then all of a sudden they started caring. So they only started caring about censorship when they got censored, and it's too late. I was sounding the alarm in 2018 saying, you're not going to win the 2020 election. You know why? It's because in 2016, big tech was somewhat free. It wasn't completely, but it was pretty good. And that's why Trump won. And that's why Bernie Sanders did so well. They made sure once Donald Trump won the election, we are not going to allow this to happen again. They started rigging algorithms against Trump in 2017, and I watched it all happen. And I was sounding the alarm to the Trump campaign, many of which who follow me on Twitter. I said, you guys got to look into this because they're rigging everything against you, your supporters. They're kicking people off. They're cutting my reach. And every time I watched Trump on television ask a question about it, he didn't give a shit. He was like, I won in 2016. I'll win in 2020. They cheated in 2016. I'll win in 2020. And I'm like, bro, you don't. I'm trying to explain to Trump and his campaign in mathematics terms. If you control 300 million people, everybody uses Facebook, Instagram, the whole country does. So if you can even rig it 10 or 20%, that's going to skew millions of votes. Everybody, Robert Epstein said this in front of Congress. I could probably even do a better job of explaining it than him. And I'm not bragging. I'm just saying he understands the data and, mechanical side to it. I understand the mathematic and internet side to it. It's like they skewed everything and he didn't care. I was telling him in 2018, bro, you're not going to win in 2020 at this rate because they're not going to make it possible with how much you're. I don't care. He didn't care until he got kicked off. Jim Jordan didn't care until he got shadow banned. So it's like these Republican idiots literally just trip over their own feet, throw money at vaccine companies, print trillions of dollars, do socialism, and then they throw a Hail Mary to Mike Pence and tell you to go get set up by the FBI at the Capitol. And then you guys still lick their boots. It's like they're such clowns. I'm so glad I felt this way in November, or else my career would probably be over. I mean, there's people on house arrest for the crime of going to the Capitol. I never would have been dumb enough to go in the building, but I'm just saying it's like a lot of people thought they were just going to a Trump rally because that's pretty much just what it was until, some people did some stupid stuff. But in general, people were treating me like crap. The same people. This is why I don't care, though. I don't care because the same people, you got to do this anomaly. You're not a real patriot. Watch me. It's like it was a setup. I didn't know it was a setup, but I felt weird about it because Trump was just like a sleazy vaccine salesman. He ruined his own election, took no accountability, and then blamed everybody else. It's like, why didn't you try to do something about the lockdown earlier? I'd said, open the country up, Trump. And Trump decided to say, well, after Easter, let's keep locking down. And he told Georgia to stay locked down. And he didn't have executive power, but he informed Republicans that they should stay locked. At that point, I don't feel bad for him anymore. It was clear he should open up the country. He said he was going to open up the country. And then he flip-flopped on Easter and told people to stay locked down. And he pushed. It's not like he was fighting Fauci. Fauci's guidelines were being promoted by Trump weeks after the lockdown. When it was wildly obvious that it was unnecessary, Trump was still pushing it. So how am I going to run around the country blaming everybody else when he's his own demise, But people don't see it that way. So they just keep tripping over his tails, getting set up, getting in trouble, getting banned for repeating Trump, and they're not even doing anything about it. He's like a giant Pied Piper. You know the old story of the Pied Piper? The Pied Piper plays the tune and sends the kids into the ocean, Follow me, patriots. And then they just get set up. For what? For what's going to be, So that's really how I felt about it in November. Not that I didn't want him to win the election and thought he still had a chance. I'm just saying, like, I'm not going to just trip over his coattails every 2 seconds and act like it's the other side. People got to wake up a little bit. That's when all of this changes, for sure. We have the numbers. We have the energy. The culture's on our side now. Logic's on our side. Truth is on our side. God is certainly on our side, since the other side completely rejects God. Science is on our side. No matter how many times they say, we have so much going for us, right? I'm not saying there's 15,000 genders and up is down and 1 + 1 is 5. So I feel good at night. I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm on the right side of history, because all of these things are really on our side. And those are pillars, regardless of me or Trump or my opinion. Like, if you're standing in reality, you have an advantage long term. It's like making a great song that nobody understands. If it's really great, it's going to stand the test of time. The label says not to make it. If it's great, Bohemian Rhapsody, people will understand it in 50 years. Who cares what they say? So we have all of that going for us. I'm not like a negative Nancy, like, oh, we're done, we're screwed. That's not how I feel. That's how people interpret it when they don't want to take a stand for anything, and they just want to follow the Pied Piper. And they're like, oh, you're such a negative Nancy. Yeah, I'm like the most optimistic, positive person on that does politics, talking about health and wellness, etc. I'm not negative. I'm just saying we have everything going in our favor. Stop tripping over his coattails and just stand firm and ask a few questions and let the GOP, including Trump, not all these rhinos, except for Trump. He's a rhino too. Treat him like a rhino and make him prove that he's not a rhino. And for the record, I would want people to do the same thing to me. Right now, I'm a news analyst. If I make a massive error and I say something that's like wildly factually inaccurate that you can prove like is totally untrue factually, like it's your duty to say something. When the few times I've made like massive errors when I posted something, or minor errors, and people post it out, I'm grateful. I've built an audience of people who come here for the truth. So when I do screw something up, it's like the top comment, because I have such a great audience. It's like everyone's like, yeah, you messed that up. And I know, Anomaly, you're not the type to really mess that stuff up. So then I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, I messed it. And then I delete it. I appreciate people who correct me when I'm like wildly factually inaccurate, because it rarely happens, because that's not what I do. So just like I want you to treat me that way with my news analysis, that's how you should treat Trump. And especially if I ran for office, if I ever run for office and I'm ever the president, or I don't want to be, but I'm just saying, your duty is to watch what I do. If I did what Trump did, I would want you to question me too. You shouldn't just ride my coattails. I'm no longer your friend or your news analyst. I'm the president of the United States. I signed the executive modernizing flu vaccine executive order. I offered Trump a position. I licked up to Fauci, and I still won't say he's not a good guy. He's my friend. I signed Operation Warp Speed. I held lockdowns too. That's all these things Trump did, and nobody wants to question them. You're setting yourselves up for failure. How can you expect Bill Gates and all these people, they're treating us like sheep and, robots. And it's like, you're acting like sheep and robots. Everything changes, just like in your own personal life. No one's going to come save you. Trump, me, no one, even God. It's like God will, save your soul, I'm sure. But as far as like, it's like sitting on the couch and praying and just eating Cheetos all day and saying, God's going to come bless me. It's like, God also, in my perspective, gave you the ability to do things. So God doesn't just bless people who sit on the couch and just, eat Cheetos all day. He blesses people that bless themselves. God gave you whatever he gave you. Be grateful, be appreciative for whatever he gave you, no matter how big or small it is, and then he'll fully bless you. You just can't sit there eating Cheetos. That's like my opinion of the Republicans right now. A lot of people are doing a lot of things, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people have this mentality of like, oh, it's all going to change and I'm just going to sit here and that guy's going to do it. It's like, it makes less sense than it did 3 years ago, because 3 years ago, it appeared that Donald Trump was going to have a big finale and he was really going to do something huge. But push came to shove and he did 50,000 things wrong, then left office, got his supporters set up. Like Hillary Clinton didn't get arrested. Trump's supporters got arrested. I'm not saying you have to blame him for it. I'm just saying in general, it doesn't make sense anymore to not question this guy. If I did half of what he did and I was running for president and then I was running for president again, I would be wildly upset if people didn't challenge me. I would be like, how dumb are these people? How weak are these people? Like, why wouldn't they challenge me? If I sat on stage and said, this is the greatest human achievement in modern history and my vaccine saved the world, why wouldn't you question? You know what I'm saying? My power, my influence, my audience, it doesn't come from this fake place where I'm just this idol and everybody else below me are just like dummy sheep. Like, that's not what it is. If I ever have a live show, ask me a question. I like questions. I appreciate being challenged. I like my ideology being tested. If I say something as fake and stupid as what Trump has been saying the past 2 years, why wouldn't you question me, right? I wouldn't expect anybody to like me. Like the only thing I really have, like maybe some people like my looks, probably not many, but in general, it's like the thing that makes me powerful and the thing that makes me successful is not my money and fame. It's the fact that I actually am honest and I have the ability to not just like fly off the rails emotionally and say something irrational. It's my accuracy when I do videos. And if I lose that, the authenticity, the accuracy, I have nothing. Trump still has money and stuff, but he doesn't have that oomph he used to have because his authenticity and his like power from the truth went from here to like here. And now he's running around selling Moderna vaccines, saying that they're the greatest human. It's a lie. He's lying. He's not a truth teller. Trump's a liar. He should call it liar social. It saved 100 million lives. Lie. It saved 50 million lives. Lie. It's the greatest modern human accomplishment. Lie. And you're not going to challenge him. If I lied, why wouldn't you? If I stood on a stage and said that, I would be annoyed at you if you didn't question me. Sometimes when I make an error and I'm like, I didn't even mean to say that. Sometimes I say it by mistake because I'm just thinking so quick. I want people to tell me the truth. Don't just like sit and lick my boots if I become, and I think for myself, every time I come live, et cetera, it's like, it's not always going to be as good as the last one. I can't, operate at like a perfect level, but in general, it's like every year I'm trying to get better, at least bare minimum, stay the same. Like if I just get wildly crappier on every level, like my message gets crappier, I start getting like, I don't want people to like it. I don't know. That's not that. I would hope people let me know and be like, yo, that's not it. Let me see. I'm going to read a few comments. I'm going to read this one. I know I don't always have to quote unquote haters. I don't consider this haters, but Backlash Junior from YouTube said, who cares about Trump? Yikes. This is seriously cringe. I mean, you're acting like you have to be here, but also it's not cringe because this is what I'm trying to do differently. I could sit here, brother, or you might be a sister in disguise. I could sit here and just make fun of AOC and it would be funny because she does look like a psychotic pigeon. However, that's easy. There's a lot of right wingers that just dunk on the left. It's funny. It's necessary at certain points. Someone has to point out their hypocrisy. I do it often as well. It's not like I'd never point it out. I would say I specialize in it. But at the end of the day, that doesn't get us anywhere. That gets us right back into a lockdown. That gets us right back into the CARES Act. That gets us right back into Operation Warp Speed. That gets us right back into an omnibus bill. There's a reason I'm talking about it, because this is like what the Republican Party needs. It's like the Democratic Party. They hate the right wing, but really what they need is self-accountability and self-awareness. Democrats, their own worst enemy is not even as bad as them. Like the ADL, they're a Jewish Anti-Defamation League, they create more anti-Semitism, the ADL, than their own worst enemy. The furthest right, like Jewish hate group, although no matter how egregious they are, they probably create less hate than the ADL because the ADL has zero self-awareness. Black Lives Matter, they have sent race relations backwards in this country more than their own worst enemy. They could pick the most evil person that they hate, and that person probably created less hate than they did. Why? Because they have no self-awareness. So I stick to the same ideology, the same one that changed my life, the same one that I believe in with the GOP. Sure, I could point out the left wing. Sure, I'm voting all Republican in November. Sure, I'm not acting like the left isn't bad, but I'm not a one-trick pony. No offense, but there's a lot of Republican influencers. I'm not going to be mean, but they don't really have talent or anything interesting. They're not really intellectual. They're just parrots, copy paste. Find a Republican talking point, someone copy paste, copy paste. Their whole life is just being a one-trick pony. That's not me. And also, it's just not helpful. So that's why I'm talking about the right wing and Trump often, is because just like the left needs self-awareness, so does the right wing. The right wing's demise will be, in my opinion, not just the left wing, but controlled op people in their party, whether they're controlled by money, ego, Satan. I don't know what you want to say they're controlled by. It doesn't necessarily mean they're purposely doing it, but it's like, that's going to be the demise of the Republican Party. Just like all of these restrictions were the demise of Republicans in 2020. It's a terribly tough decision. I'm not saying it was easy, but you could say that the Republicans stuck their shoe in their own mouth in 2020, March, April, May, June. It took a lot of Republicans till July or August to figure out what was going on. I'm not trying to be mean because honestly, I was confused at a certain point too. When everything's happening, how the hell am I supposed to know what's going on? I don't understand virology as much as some other doctors. But in general, as I started crunching the data, I figured it out pretty damn quickly. And it took GOP politicians like 5 months to figure it out. So you could blame AOC and you could blame Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab, but really the GOP ruined their own 2020 because it took them a wildly long amount of time to figure out what was going on. They played into the hands of their enemy for months, not weeks, not days, months. So you could say years. When Sarah Huckabee and Trump goes to Alabama in 2021 and tells Alabamans to get a vaccine, I would say they're still playing into the hands of the people who don't like them. Not because everybody has a choice and no mandates, because it's all a compliance game. Do you think if Israel was 10% vaccinated, do you think they could do a green pass? Of course not. They need 90% compliance. So I'm not telling people what to do, but this is the game. Israel still has cases, deaths. It didn't get rid of the virus. If this vaccine dropped it to zero and everybody was healthier than they were, I'd be like, okay, I get where you're coming from, but that's not the case. So you get what I'm saying? It's like, this is all a game of compliance. If the GOP is using 2021 to try to sell people on the product that they're using to control you, they are by definition controlled opposition. They are doing 60% of the bidding of the other side while 40% putting on a little circus show for people. That's just the reality. At the end of the day, some people can't hear certain things at certain times, but I feel fine saying it. People will get it eventually. I think it's pretty obvious. Shadowban said America's in controlled demolition right now. I don't know what they're doing. I mean, it does seem that way for sure. And here's, I guess, also the reason that I'm so interested in saying this. If you have two horses in a race and they're both not going to run, you lose, so we know the Democrats are not on our side. I don't have to tell you. I wish I could tell you that there's a Democrat somewhere that's on your side, but the only one that maybe possibly is on your side is Tulsi Gabbard, and she's probably not even a Democrat. She seems like a full-fledged right-winger at this point, but who knows? But the point I'm getting to is the Democrat, that's not your horse. Your horse is the Republican Party, but if that horse isn't going to run to the finish line, you lose. That's why I'm talking about Republicans, okay? Because America is in controlled demolition mode right now. The left wing is going full controlled demolition. If the right wing isn't even trying to save you, then we lose. The only way we're ever going to possibly win is when enough conservatives, Republicans, libertarians, honest progressives, normal liberals that have now, been called far right for the crime of probably still leaning left on most issues, if these people come together and say, all right, that's our horse, that's our only chance. They're not doing enough. They're not going to stop it at this rate. They're not going to win. But it's an easy shift. And it doesn't, this is a misconstrued idea. It doesn't make you like a bad, it's politics, folks. It's not, I mean, it blows my mind that so many people don't want to admit that this is happening. Do people not know how politics works? I'll give you an in. As somebody, I don't go to donor meetings. I don't take people's money. I'm not into politics as much as everybody likes. I'm not going to say everyone likes me, but people know me in politics. I'm very well known. I'm not a politician. I don't go to these events. I don't ask for money. I don't want anything. I just want people to leave me the hell alone, which they don't do. But if you're in the Republican Party, I'll give you an in to what people are doing, just so you stop. Not everybody, but people stop being so emotional about it. It's just what people do in politics. When you're running for office, you take money from people. You don't win unless you take money. And you don't get money unless you do what the people who give you money say. It's the whole thing. Trump, Biden, all of them, okay? And then there's also a lot of influencers that take donor money. Why? Why not? If you want to be rich and powerful, you take someone's money and they put you on a show, or they put you on, a certain like thing and give you a bunch of backing. I take nothing from people. I got Patreon, my own stuff. I sell my own hats. I don't even take sponsor money. I'm not saying it makes you a bad person. I'm just saying I know how the industry works because I watch what people do. I'm not going to name names, but I've had people call me trying to start beef with other people that I'm like, yo, leave me alone. I like both of you, but I don't care what you do. They're like, well, they're stepping on my toes with the donor money. Like literally influencers that you guys like are fighting each other over donor money. And I'm like, I don't give a crap about any of that shit. Like, that's fine. Go get your money. But it's like, don't bring your drama. I don't do drama. You're not my girlfriend. I run my own business. Like, keep that. But like, people don't even realize like that's how politics works. We're not talking about freaking a soup kitchen. We're talking about politics, the place where people do politics. If there's sketchy stuff going on at your business or your company, what do they call it? Politics. Oh, they're just politicking. Politics is known as this like grimy, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, they're just politicking too much. It's like a synonym for, scheming. That's like if someone's doing politics at your work, it's usually not a good thing. Oh, they're playing politics. That's not a compliment. Yeah. Oh, they're just playing politics at my work. In a good way? No, in a bad. It's always in a bad way. So this is like, what's going on here? The point I'm getting to is if people do something weird or off, it's okay for you to question it because they're probably doing it because they got paid off to do it. That's the whole industry. If I sit here and sell freaking My Pillow, I'm not doing it for free. I'm doing it because Mike Lindell's giving me money, or I'm getting a promo code, a percentage of it. If I sell, freaking Clorox wipes, which I would never sell, I'm not doing it for my own health. Like, I'm doing it because that company's paying me. I sell my hats, godblesshats.com. Guess who owns the company? Me, godblesshats.com. I own it. So every hat sale, I buy the hats in bulk. I pay somebody to get them, stitch them, do it. But it's my company. I own 100% of it. But there are people who get paid just on the process, the stitcher, the people who I get the hats from, the guy who ships it, etc. But you get what I'm saying? Nothing happens for no reason. I don't just sell these hats because I like them. Yeah, I like them. I do think they're good, or else I wouldn't sell them. But that's how I make money also. But it's not a bad thing because they're actually good. They're made in the USA. And I don't have to do anything to please myself. You get what I'm saying? I don't have to change my message for my own company. That's why I'm able to say all this stuff. But the point I'm trying to get to is this is just what politics. If Trump gets $1 million from Pfizer, that's going to impact his decision. It doesn't make him a bad person. I mean, it's not great, but the point I'm getting to is they want you to think that they're not doing that. You get what I'm saying? The whole scheme is we need to act like we're great people when we're just skeezy politicians. Like Chuck Schumer, he's duped millions of left-wingers into thinking he's like fighting like white supremacy. It's like, what? Like, why do you think that? Chuck Schumer is a politician. He's doing politics, but somehow he's duped millions of Democrats and like, oh, Chuck Schumer is really going to stick it to Donald Trump. No, he used to sound like Donald Trump 8 years ago. What are you talking about? He used to be more bullish on the wall than Trump was. But this is how brainwashed people get because they're like, I hate Donald Trump, so I'm going to just assume that Chuck Schumer's on my side. Like, left-wingers don't even question donor money and big corporate interests anymore. They've literally lost their minds. But then you go to the right wing and it's like, everybody acts like they're so much smarter. And they're like, I know, but Trump's fighting the deep state. And if you say he took money from Pfizer, I'm going to get mad at you. It's like, Why are you getting emotional over the fact that Donald Trump took tens of millions of dollars of donor money from high profile clients? That's just what he did. Guess why? Because that's the whole industry. Many influencers that you watch are also taking donor money. Many influencers that you watch refuse to say the truth because they know it's going to impact their money. I know people that know certain things that I say that don't want to say them because they don't want to lose their position or their money or their sponsor. So they shut up and they stay silent on the issue. I know this for a fact. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not calling people out. I'm just telling people it's okay to question a politician. It's okay to stand. You have to stand your ground. It's not just okay. You have to. Trump will not do what you think he's going to do unless you are part of the equation. I've explained this before, but I'll say it again. You know, Trump is taking hundreds of thousands of business meetings. Israel, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Ukraine, Pfizer, Moderna, you know, Bank of America. Trump is meeting with everybody. And you have to understand, as a businessman, he's making business deals. Okay. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. You got to do it. So when it comes to the American people, don't sell yourself short. You're part of the equation if you want to be. You are a big part of it. You are the funders. You're probably his biggest funder. You're his voter. You are his energy support base. You are his PR team. You are everything to Donald Trump. So don't sell yourself short. Demand something just like they demand something, right? That's all I'm asking. Not in a rude way, but tell them, hey, the reason that we're giving you money, supporting you, we are your PR team. You know, I was helping Trump for 3 years, not paid wise, but he seemed like an honest guy, and I felt bad for him, and I probably gave him a lot of good PR, not because I was paid to do so, because it was the right thing to do. What did I demand in return when I gave him good PR? Well, be an honest person, tell the truth, do what's right, and I'll gladly give you my energy for free, for no cost at all, because I want to, because it's the right thing to do. When Trump started being a skis ball vaccine salesman, now as somebody who gave him hundreds of millions of views of good favor, is looking like, I don't think you really deserve it right now. Yeah, you're better than Biden, but I'm not going to defend you if you don't even defend me. You know, I'm not going to defend your freedom if you don't defend mine. I'll still do it out of principle, but I don't like you that much. So we, the American people, are part of this business equation. But Trump, when he looks at his base, this is just my personal opinion, until recently, until DeSantis and people started really, now Trump has some competition. That's a good thing, right? We don't want communism. We want competition. Now that Trump has some competition, he's been forced to change his rhetoric, not because he wants to. That's called people speaking out. It's a good thing. We want to do that. So, you know, when it comes to this next equation, or this next election and business meetings that Trump takes, you don't want him to look at you and the base and say, oh, I got them in the bag. I could shoot somebody in the middle of Main Street and they would never even care. You don't want that, because now you're not really a part of the equation. It's like, I'm going to do deals with other people, but they'll like me, whatever. This is why I'm so thrilled that people like Ron DeSantis just as much, if not more, than Trump right now. Trump doesn't like it. I could tell. I've seen him in interviews. Trump can't stand the fact that DeSantis is as popular as him now, but he's too egotistical. It's not because people like DeSantis naturally more than you. It's because you've been a loser for the last year, selling vaccines too much. And DeSantis, while he sold vaccines a little bit, he's prioritized fighting the mandates. Trump has prioritized selling the vaccine. That's why people like him more, Trump. But, you know, it's a good thing that people like DeSantis more than Trump, because now Trump is forced to think about why and correct maybe certain things he's doing. That's good. Someone said he's gone. You're not listening, and it's okay, but just listen, or don't listen. But there's other things to listen to. I'm saying this for multiple reasons. I could just dunk on left wingers, but that's not going to save us if we have two horses in the race and they're both not going to the destination. And also, he's not just an irrelevant nobody. He's the thought leader of the party. He's the most important person, and he's the most popular figure and the most, I would say, the thought leader of the Republican Party. And he's the front runner for the 2024 election. So he's not just nothing. He's our horse in the race. He is the horse in the race on our side. But if he's not really on our side, we don't have a horse in the race. That's a whole part of the live stream. So thank you for, getting to that. But that's the whole part of it. Someone said DeSantis is a lot more perfect than Trump. Well, here's two things that I have questions for DeSantis, to be fair. I think he's better against the COVID rhetoric. I think he's a better leader. I think he makes better decisions. I think he hires better people. I think he's better on health and science stuff. I mean, he's better than Trump on most things. But foreign policy, we don't know. What's DeSantis's foreign policy? Trump, despite all his downfalls, he has pretty good foreign policy. He's the only voice of reason on the Ukraine war. So much so that even Noam Chomsky admitted it, which is crazy. I thought Noam Chomsky was brain dead, but apparently there's still a brain in there. But, Trump's foreign policy is pretty good. What's DeSantis's foreign policy? I don't know. I'm not saying it's bad, but he could be a neocon war hawk. He could be a Dan Crenshaw. He could be Ben Shapiro. I don't know. Maybe Ben's got some okay takes, but we don't, he's untested on foreign policy. I have no idea what DeSantis thinks. And also the speech laws for Israel. I mean, he actively sells out the First Amendment for a foreign country, like everyone in the GOP does. Once again, folks, it's not hate speech to point it out. The biggest donors in the GOP want these speech laws. And if people can't handle that, I don't really care. So, those are the two things I'm skeptical of DeSantis about. But, in all these other ways, he is absolutely, I think, raising the bar. He picked a good surgeon general, a frontline doctor, as his sidekick for the COVID stuff. That was a great move. Trump constantly puts swamp creatures right next to him and then complains. It's kind of cringy. He's like, oh no, I didn't know General Milley. Oh no, I didn't know General Milley was bad. Oh no, I got fooled again by Jared Kushner. Oh no, I put Anthony Scaramucci. It's like, can you not figure out who does the job? It's funny, but do you notice? I mean, DeSantis isn't as big of a scale, but do you notice that Ron DeSantis has never had that problem? Because he actually hires people that don't hate him, and he actually hires based people that do their job properly. Like, he hires good surgeon generals who actually care about real health. He doesn't hire a bunch of swamp rat, big pharma creatures like Trump and then cry and play the victim. Do you know who Trump put at the Human Health Services, HHS, which oversees the NIH? It's the biggest health agency in America. Trump put a pharmacy lobbyist. Google Donald Trump, Alex Azar. With the power of the executive branch, Donald Trump chose a pharmacy lobbyist to run human health services. So do you think that might have had something to do with us ending up in a lockdown? Donald Trump either sold out or obliviously just walked right into the trap of big pharma. I'm not saying DeSantis won't do that, but he hires people that don't do that. He hired a frontline doctor that was against lockdowns for the Surgeon General. It's possible to hire people who don't hate you for positions, but Republicans don't even know it's possible because Donald Trump continuously hires people who hate you. He hires bad Supreme Court justices. He hires bad people and then he's like, oh no, they got me again. Oh no. It's because I don't think this is just my personal opinion, of course. I think he has zero humility and he has such a massive ego that he will hire anybody who just says nice things to him. I think it's wildly easy to fool Donald Trump. Bill Gates explains how he got Trump to push all this, vaccine stuff years ago. And Bill Gates said that he just told Trump that he would be like a science hero. And Bill Gates Trump's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a hero. It's almost that easy to fool Trump. So I think the reason that Trump constantly gets fooled is because he doesn't think critically about who's really a good person. He just likes people who lick the dirt off his shoes. So bad people that hate you and hate him just suck up to him for a few months and he just hires him a position, And, yeah, I think DeSantis thinks a little bit more about who the person is, what their track record is, if they're really going to be loyal, if they're really on his side. I don't think Trump thinks like that. People can disagree with me because it really is just my opinion. And I'll be honest about it. I might be completely wrong. I don't know. I don't like to psychoanalyze people too much but I don't think he's a good leader. I thought he was for a while, but it's like, if you're too foolish to figure out how to hire people around you that don't hate you in the country, then why does that keep happening? I personally don't think that DeSantis would do that. And when it comes to the vaccine stuff, someone said he's all business. He was 100% business, 0% morals or long-term thought process, in my opinion, where it's like, yeah, we're going to do this big business deal and, it's going to be huge. And it's like, yeah, but sometimes a big business deal is not great. And when it comes to business in America, here's something that nobody's saying. Democrats, Republicans, nobody's talking about it. Our food industry is disgraceful. And I want Americans to understand this because I pray that one day we will get over this and we can laugh about it. I don't care, because there's probably a lot of people that watch me that aren't healthy, that are healthy. I don't care how healthy you are. I don't care if you're 400 pounds or 40 pounds. But if you're 40 pounds, you should probably seek help, because that's too light, unless you're like really young. But in general, I don't care how big you are. I don't care what you eat. I don't care if you're vegan. I don't care if you're a meat eater. Here's the big secret that nobody's talking about. It's not the fact that you can't eat a hamburger or a hot dog. It's what's in these products is insane. If you just ate a normal hamburger with normal bread, it's not that big of a deal. In fact, I love hamburgers. I eat them too much. There's weird shit in all of our food, like illegal shit that's illegal in Europe, shit that's illegal in Japan. It's really evil. There's dough conditioner that's used at fast food that's illegal overseas. You have a totally different product when you go to Europe and you eat McDonald's. Why are they poisoning us? Trump will never talk about this. Biden will never talk about this. Neither party will never talk about this. I'm not one of these like people that is like a health supremacist, like you need to eat like me. Eat whatever the hell you want, but you should live in a country where the FDA and these agencies aren't allowing these type of foods that are going to destroy you. So in a perfect society, the meat would be good and the bun would be whatever. It's not the best, but it's not terrible. Our buns are like alien food. It's literally illegal in multiple countries. The candy that they're giving to your children is all illegal. You know, Skittles, all this stuff. Look at the ingredients. They have literal like food dyes that aren't legal in most countries. So, you know, this is just my one message to everybody that I learned over time, because I used to eat all this garbage. I still eat candy, but I eat good candy that's real chocolate. I still eat hamburgers, but I try to get good meat and good quality, at least a good bun. Even the buns at like In-N-Out are garbage, but they're not as bad probably as the other ones, but they're like soy-based and stuff. It's like we're being just absolutely assaulted with this quality of food that is literally banned in countries like Japan and continents like Europe. And if anybody really cared about our country, they would address that and fix that immediately. Then you could overeat and not be absolutely enormous. The reason everybody's obese, it's not just because people are overeating. It's not just because people aren't getting exercise. It's because we're being metaphorically and possibly literally poisoned with this garbage, insane quality of food that is literally banned from other countries because it's not even really food. So, you know, if we really want to make America great again, we got to get to the root of it. What are we eating? What are we drinking? You know, I don't even drink soda anymore. I'm not saying you can't, but they have good sodas that are not high fructose corn syrup. You know, they have good quality stuff, cane sugar, whatever. It's not a big deal to me, but it's like, I'm not drinking this alien food everywhere. Everything's garbage. Like I'm not this like amazing person that eats everything great. Honestly, I could tend to lose a few pounds or gain a few pounds of muscle myself, but in general, it's like I cut all this crap out and I get products that taste just as good, if not better. It's like actual, you know, if you eat like a grape lollipop, like it tastes weird. It's whatever, but like eat a grape, you know, a chocolate covered strawberry tastes amazing. A chocolate covered strawberry tastes better than any crappy candy with illegal food dye. You know, it's amazing. So that's just my message to people. And in general, it's like there's certain root level things that we're never solving because neither party wants to solve. People will get upset at this live stream and say, normally I like Trump. Let's not even talk about Trump then. Let's talk about the fact that I believe since the time I was 18 years old, I've always thought that Big Pharma was evil. This isn't some new thing that I discovered due to Trump or due to the pandemic. I think they make some good products, but overall, you have to understand, I grew up in a society where everybody was overprescribed pills. So I saw it when I was a kid. They tried to give me Adderall. Thank God for my mom. My mom's like, he's not special. He doesn't need Adderall, you know? And it's like, I had no problems. I'm a wildly hard worker. I'm wildly energetic. I just didn't like school and I slept, you know, I would stay up late and play video games. Like I was tired because I stayed up till like 3 a.m. playing internet games with people in other countries, like, you know, shooter games. It's like I wasn't tired because I needed pills. They're just feeding people equivalent to like methamphetamines. Like, you know, it's crazy. So the point I'm getting to is my whole life I've been like, I noticed that at a young age. I used to rap about it when I was 19. I'm like, Big Pharma, it's not that all their products are bad. I'm not an anti-piller. You know, I don't hate all pills, but they're over prescribing. That's their business model. What does Ford want to do? Ford wants to sell a lot of cars. What does Tesla want to do? Tesla wants to sell more cars. What does Big Pharma want to do? Give you more vaccines and more pills. That's their business model. That's what they want to do. And I hate to break it to people, but they don't give a crap how healthy it is or not. Not about this product and not about the last one. They've got caught multiple times with fraud, defrauding data, defrauding scientists, pushing products that they knew were bad, hiding stuff. This is their entire history. They're garbage, and they've been garbage for 2 decades. So it's not just the mandates. This is what gets people blocked on my Twitter. I've blocked hundreds of people for saying this. It's not because I can't handle the truth or I don't want to hear this. It's because people are missing the point I'm saying. We could talk about mask mandates and vaccine mandates later, but I'm still really annoyed at Donald Trump for giving tens of billions of dollars to Big Pharma. He lobbed them up to Duncan. They don't need socialist money. It's like sending $33 billion to Ukraine. I'm not anti-Ukraine, but stay the hell off my money and let's stop funding proxy wars in corrupt communist countries. But in general, it's like, everyone's like, put the mandates. It's like NPC rubbers, put the mandates, and I'm going to put the mandates. It's like, shut up. You're not even listening to me. I've always disliked this industry. They've always been corrupt. And Big Pharma was always going to be more corrupt because what do you think happens when you give on a pedestal? You hand $15 billion to Big Pharma. Do you think they're not going to be corrupt? Oh, this corrupt industry that's just known for fraud and, overprescribing their products to make money. Now they've got more money than they've ever got in modern history from government taxpayer dollars during a lockdown from President Donald Trump bragging about it, acting like it's you think that's not going to backfire? It was always going to backfire. So the sobby, annoying, excuse making Trump supporters who tell me, oh, but anomaly, he's totally innocent. It's like, get over yourself. Your guy sets you up for failure. And that's just the truth. And people could get mad at me all they want and cry and lie and I could whatever. But at the end of the day, if anybody in office cared about you, they talk about the food quality. They don't. Trump sells McDonald's because he doesn't give a crap. Okay. And honestly, he probably doesn't even know because he doesn't look like, mentally extremely healthy, physically, he's not bad, but I don't think he cares about food, whatever. Big Pharma, he knows they're corrupt. Donald Trump has talked about their corruption his whole life. Now he gets paid by them. All of a sudden he's working for them. It's all one big business deal for him. And unfortunately, the business is to hurt you. And that's the business deal he made. So, this is not some new phenomenon I figured out a year ago that Big Pharma might possibly be corrupt. I've seen it my whole life. Ford wants to sell cars. Tesla wants to sell cars. Microsoft wants to sell Xboxes. And Big Pharma wants to sell vaccines and pills. And they don't care that the schedule goes from 1 to 5 to 15 to 40. And they'll cover up anything that happens and call it a conspiracy theory. The average person taking no pills, 1 pill, 2 pill, 3 pill, 4 pills. I mean, people are wildly overprescribed on pharmacy pills. Adults, grandparents, kids. Who can't? Why do you think they started giving kids Adderall all the time? You think kids just needed Adderall? No, it's the same with vaccines. Well, Moderna wants to give it to 5-year-olds. Of course, I'm sure they would probably inject it into your womb if they possibly could. Moderna wants to inject into. It's like, of course they do. Yeah, what don't they want to do? Why wouldn't they? I mean, do the math. Well, if we can give it to 5-year-olds, that's 3 million more sales or 10 million more sales. If we could give it to your womb, that's 15 million sales. If we could give it 2 times a year, 3 times a year, a booster shot every year, we just made $1 trillion. Of course, that's their business model. So it's the same with pills. At a certain point, you didn't have kids taking pills. That was never normal in America. But, how many kids are there? Well, there's like 50, 60 million kids in America. Okay, well, what if we could figure out a way to get each of them at least 1 or 2 pills? Well, that's a couple, it's like $50 billion a year. It's like, this is probably how they're thinking. Like, I didn't have ADHD. What does that even mean? Some kids maybe, but really, I was a creative kid. I was passionate about other stuff. And I played a lot of video games like an idiot, and I didn't like school. I was a bad kid. I don't need methamphetamines because I was a bad kid. That's not the way to make me a good kid. Here, let's jack your kid up. Thank God I didn't take that. I took Adderall in college. Okay. They tried to give it to me in high school. Never took it. Took it in college to study. It's like crack cocaine. And I've never smoked crack. I'm just saying, it's like, I'm just jacked up for 7 hours. I'm studying. I read, if I took Adderall, I'd read this whole book, but in my opinion, and this is not a sale because it is legal in some places, but I think Kratom, in my personal perspective, is a better alternative to Adderall, but I'm not promoting it. And I'm not, you could study the science and talk to your local expert, but in general, it's like Adderall, just like, I felt cracked out for like 10 hours, and I was and then after I would feel really down and I'd be sweating and stuff. I mean, I've done, I'm not disclosure, I've done drugs, but in general, it's like, it's a serious drug. It's a drug. It's a serious, long lasting drug that makes you sweat. And I couldn't help thinking to myself when I was in college and I did it under my own free will, I was like, they're giving this to kids? They're giving this drug to kids every day? They're giving this to kids every day? You could go back and find songs of mine from 2009. That's when I started rapping about Big Pharma. I've been rapping about how evil they were for over a decade now. Cause I'm like, I can't believe they're giving this like cracked out drug to little kids every day. So what are they, sweating in school? Freaking having well, that's money for them. So the point I'm getting to is it's deeper than just like, oh my God, are they going to, it's like, if you sign an executive order that gives them power and merges 8 branches of government together, if you print trillions of dollars and then you give tens of billions of dollars to Big Pharma, you're not helping me and you're not helping Republicans. The difference is, I know you're setting me up. I know you're controlled opposition, but everybody else maybe they're nicer than me or something. And they just want to believe that you really care when I know you don't. So I'll continue to say it. I don't care what the cost is. I don't care who gets upset, because it's the truth. And the GOP, including Trump, need to learn. Maybe everyone doesn't want to say it right now because all these influencers, I'm not going to say they're paid off, but you got to understand there's a huge benefit to just shutting up and selling Trump merch and MyPillows. Calling out Trump is not the smartest thing to do financially as a conservative, but in general, I would just say, I know that they sold us out to Big Pharma. I know it. I've seen the money. It's public knowledge. I'm not deep diving and Project Veritasing them. It's like public information, how many millions upon tens of millions of dollars the GOP took from Big Pharma. They're better than Democrats. They took less money than Democrats. However, I know that they're sold out to Big Pharma, and they could lie and put a big clown on the stage that does the dance to the YMCA so people think that they're going to fight Hillary Clinton or something. I know that they're not. So, I'll still vote for these losers, but I'm letting them know with everything I have in me that, I know that they're not doing that. And once enough people know that and be honest about it, that's when it all changes. That's when they realize that what they're doing and they stop doing it. But they're never. The same thing with Walensky and the lockdown thing. She admitted, once again, we were going to do it for this many days, but people wouldn't listen. So then we changed it. Social sciences. Yeah, the GOP is doing the same thing for you. They're like, if our base doesn't realize we're doing all this stuff, we'll just keep doing it in half and half. It's the same reason like all these Republicans are like, oh, we're so against illegal immigration, but then they like green light, illegal work visas. And they're like, yeah, it's like, they're probably getting paid off. It's what it is. People, once again, and then I'm going to end the live stream. This has been long. People need to understand, even me, people that watch me, I'm authentic. I'm not a bribable person. That's why I'm not in politics. If I ever ran for politics, which I won't, I can't afford it. I don't have the money. Even if I had money saved, you don't spend that much money. Even millionaires don't spend their own money. Trump spent your money and, Big Pharma money, but also other money. It's like, he didn't use all of his net worth to fund his campaign. Nobody does that. But in general, it's like you can't get into office without taking money from somebody, whether it's people, whatever. That's just how it works. That's just what they do. So you have to understand, if I ever ran for office, I would want you to scrutinize me too, because at a certain point, I might have to take someone's money or something. I don't know. And it changes you being around this sort of stuff. So, they want you to believe that they're not doing that, but they're almost all doing that. And it wouldn't be the end of the world, but people get so caught in this narrative. It's like a stage, it's like Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet and Trump and Biden and I'm going to fight Orange Man bad or Orange Man good. He's going to fight Hillary. It's like this big stage where there are people who are better for you and worse, but at the end of the day, they just want you to get emotional about them and be like, not realize that they're also playing this game, because that's the game to be played. You don't win office without a lot of money. You're not winning president without hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank account with to spend on ads and stuff. That's just how it works. So, it's not a bad thing. It doesn't make you a bad person to ask them what they're doing. It's just part of the game. That's literally what politics is. It's the whole thing. It's like the media. You don't get on MSNBC unless they're not going to give me a television show on MSNBC. Are you kidding me? Maybe I could get a show on Fox News. Maybe I could get a show on Newsmax. Maybe I could get a show on One American News Network, but they're not going to let me get a show on MSNBC. Like, it doesn't work that way. It's not just like, oh, you just appear and you just say whatever you want and you don't have writers and they don't have a threshold. It's like, oh, Trevor Noah or who? Jimmy Kimmel, oh, okay. Yeah, he's good to go. But watch, let's not do that though. It's just politics is the same way. It's like, you can go here, but you got to take, and then just don't go there though. People just got to realize it. All right. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Appreciate everybody who stuck around. This has been Dream Rare Podcast. This will be live. We have a few new interviews coming. If you're into Spotify or Apple, and that's a way to consume news, I appreciate it. You can check it out there. If not, it's all gravy. Before I leave real quick, we do have blue hats, I don't know, pink hats, white hats, stone colored hats. We have beanies made in the USA, come with the flag. You already know. We have more stuff in stock than I've ever had, and I'm probably not going to up anything. I kind of want to sell everything out. I'm not going to do it quickly, but in general, I've been buying so much stuff because I've never had the chance to have baby blue hats. This is brand new. I've never had the chance to have, royal blue beanies. We got black beanies back. There's finally stuff in stock after all the, supply chain BS they've been putting us through. So this is probably going to be it for a while. Appreciate y'all, and have a beautiful day. That's what keeps this stream going.